Marvel. Tony Stark, I have a genius son stronger than me. Chapter 21. A sudden break. A gorgeous Audi supercar stopped at the door of the Disney concert hall. When Tony in the car came down with Mark, everyone at the scene immediately became agitated. Weapon manufacturing is only a small part of the Stark industrial empire. Our relationship with the fire rescue team, at the moment Obadiah, who was being interviewed by the reporter, felt the sudden noise at the scene and turned his head to look out the door. Go. If the host of the party doesn't come, then what's the point even if the whole world is there? Tony brought Mark to Obadiah and asked him for an explanation. Hey, look and see, this is really amazing, Obadiah said to him embarrassedly. Tony saw that there was a reporter next to him, and took the initiative to save him face, and didn't continue to be embarrassed. Let's go inside and talk again. After speaking, he pulled Mark into the concert hall. That bearded bald head laughed at me with that expression just now, just like the driver drove the owner's car out to show off and it happened to hit the owner, ha ha ha. After Mark entered the concert hall, he finally couldn't help laughing. Came out. Ha ha, to be honest, I think it's funny too. Tony, who was in a bad mood, improved after hearing Mark's joke, and laughed with him. The two came to the beverage counter. Tony asked the waiter for a glass of scotch and Mark for a glass of milk with added calcium. At this time, a man in a black suit next to them took the initiative to communicate. Hello, Mr. Stark, I am Agent Phil Coulson. Oh yes, that's from, Tony couldn't remember the name of the organization when he spoke. It's the Bureau of National Land Strategic Defense, Attack and Logistics Support. Mark reminded. Phil Coulson. Yes, thank you kid. Gosh, you should change your department a new name. Tony murmured. Yes, I often hear people say that. Phil Coulson responded with a smile neither awkward nor polite. But at this time Mark excitedly opened his mouth and proposed, how about calling S.H.I.E.L.D.? S.H.I.E.L.D., you can propose to your chief. Mark is excited because he didn't expect to encounter such a good opportunity. If the name S.H.I.E.L.D. was named by himself, he would feel bright after thinking about it. After all, he was involved in it. A good name, simple and direct, with profound meaning. I will suggest it to my chief, thank you again. I think it's good too. What can you do with S.H.I.E.L.D.? Tony took a sip of wine and asked Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson, it's like this. I know that this period of time is very difficult for you, but I still have to ask you some information. There are still many unresolved things. The definitely time is also a problem. Let's record it. What? How about meeting at Stark Industries at 7 p.m. on the 24th? Tony stretched out his right hand and shook Phil Coulson together. Guess what? I think what you said is right, I agree. Now I'm going to my secretary, and I will decide the matter. After speaking, Tony walked towards Pepper who was wearing a blue silk halter evening gown, and even Mark on one side was forgotten. I guess he will completely forget about it then. Mark, who was left in place, patted Phil Coulson's arm and talked to him. Why? Phil Coulson was puzzled. Did you not see that when he listened to you just now, the little blurred eyes had been hooked away by Pepper's back? Your insight can also be an agent. I think you should still be negotiating experts or more suitable. You have a special temperament that will make it easy for people to get close to you. Thank you for your reminder, but I will still be on time for the appointment when the time comes. And don't look at me like this. I am also an experienced old agent. It is definitely not a problem to be a negotiator. But you are so late. Come out with Mr. Stark, won't you lose energy in class tomorrow? Oh, look, you, as an agent, want to ask my dad for the answers you need. You don't even know if his is studying or not. Do you still say that you are an experienced old agent? The investigation is too perfunctory. Mark shook his head pretending to be disappointed. He just felt a little bored and wanted to pass the time with Phil Coulson. I just want to ask Mr. Stark about the details of his escape from the terrorists, not to investigate his personal situation. Under normal circumstances, our special departments will still abide by the law's protection of citizens' privacy. But you don't seem to be going to school before you reach adulthood. Did you graduate early like Mr. Stark? Quote, no, I haven't been to school at all. I have taught myself at home since I was a kid. I already know what I teach in school. Why should I go to school? Isn't it a waste of time? Mark's sudden pretense Rufung actually left Phil Coulson speechless, and this time he really had to smile awkwardly rather than politely. On the other side, Tony relied on the navigation that he had locked Pepper's gaze, and he had come to the goddess. Hey, you are so beautiful tonight, no one of me came out. Why are you here? Pepper looked surprised at Tony's appearance at the party. After all, Tony's schedule was arranged by her. Tony, I'm hiding from a government agent. Pepper, did you come by yourself? Tony, no, I came with Mark. Where did you get this skirt? Pepper's expression suddenly became a little embarrassed. This is my birthday present, but in fact it was given to myself by you instead of you. At the time Tony was busy playing tricks on his own black technology. When he heard Pepper's birthday, he said to her, send you a birthday present instead of me, but Pepper is also a competent secretary, even this kind of thing. It's really done for Tony. It seems that my taste is good. Do you want to dance? But Tony didn't feel embarrassed at all. He was used to Pepper taking care of everything for him, even if it would make an originally romantic thing very romantic. Boring. Oh, no, Pepper immediately refused. Okay, come on. Tony took her hand actively and took her to the dance floor. Thank you, Mr. Stark. But it really doesn't need to be. But obviously, Tony, who has entered the domineering president mode, will not listen to the opponent's rejection. Tony put his arms around Pepper's waist, and the two swayed on the dance floor. You look uncomfortable, Tony asked, feeling the stiffness of Pepper's body and the unnatural expression. No, I just forgot to spray the body lotion, and now I dance with my boss, Pepper hesitated to explain, without telling the real reason. In fact, dancing with a boss like Tony in a backless evening dress is a serious problem. For a secretary like Pepper, who has always been very dedicated and professional, this will make people give her pointers and gossip about her. You look beautiful and smell good. But I can fire you if it makes you feel better. Tony's words indicate that he understood Pepper's implied meaning, but he didn't stop. Dancing with Pepper, he doesn't care how others gossiping, because now he only sees Pepper in front of him. Feeling the heart in Tony's eyes, Pepper also relaxed himself and joked. Actually, I don't think you would even tie your own shoelaces without me. Tony, I can last for a week. Really, I don't believe it. Pepper asked in Luyu's way. Do you know your social insurance number? Do you want to go out and get some air? Tony couldn't answer, and Tony used the topic-changing method again. Okay, I also want to go out and get some breath. On the terrace, only in the corner of the two, Pepper said something embarrassing to say in public. I feel weird. It seems that everyone who works with me is looking at both of us. Why, are we just dancing? No, it's not just dancing. Because you are you, and everyone knows who you are and how you treat girls. And all this is fine, but you know what, to me you are my boss and I am dancing with you. I don't think they want to be crooked. But that makes me look like the one who wants, you know, sugar daddy. And I'm still wearing this ridiculous dress, as he said, looking at the focused eyes in Tony's eyes before him. Only his own figure was reflected in his eyes. Pepper closed his eyes unconsciously, and his lips slowly moved closer to Tony. However, Tony was tense at this time, his body was as rigid as a zombie who had just awakened from a coffin, and he did not respond to Pepper's initiative at all. At last Pepper stopped. She was a little disappointed with Tony's performance. She even believed that Tony might have some different feelings for her, but now she is not sure what Tony is thinking about. This man who can sleep on the cover of a magazine for a year can really affect her. Are you serious? I want to have a drink, how about you? In order to cover up the embarrassment between the two caused by the behavior just now, Pepper offered to drink something. It just so happens to me. What do you want to drink? I'll get it for you. Tony recovered, although he was annoyed by his stupid performance just now, but in order to maintain his demeanor in front of his beloved, Tony also said he responded lightly. I want a vodka martini and more dried olives, at least 3. Okay, 2 glasses of vodka martini, add dried olives, please hurry up. By the way, one of the heavy olives. Tony put the tip in front of the bartender and let out a deep sigh of relief. He was so nervous just now. Tony never thought that at that moment Pepper would just lean over and prepare to kiss him. I really don't know if it was a test. If it was, then he must have failed just now. While Tony was thinking about it, a well-dressed female reporter, after seeing Tony's back, came to the bar and said, "Wow, Tony Stark. It's nice to see you here and there." "Oh, hello, you're Carly." Tony vaguely remembered the other person's face when he saw the other person's face, but he couldn't remember the other person's name. Kristen. Before Tony had guessed her name by pretending to know her, the female reporter Christine broke her name directly. She also knew that a playboy like Tony Stark couldn't remember the name of a small person like her, even if she had a one-night stand with him. "Tony. Yes, I just wanted to call that. You seem to be nervous when you show up here tonight. Can you at least let me see a little reaction from you?" As a reporter, Christine was so observant that she immediately noticed Tony's expression. "It's unnatural. As you can see, nervousness. I think nervousness is my reaction." Tony didn't want to tell a reporter about the kiss he had just failed because if he did, it would definitely happen the next day. Appeared on the front page headlines of the entertainment version, "Let people all over the world know." But I have been hearing recently that Stark Industries was involved in this recent atrocity. Is this the responsibility you call it? Even if Tony no longer wants to reveal his thoughts, as a reporter, Christine will not let go of digging out the content method you want from Tony. "Atrocity. Sorry, I don't understand what you are talking about. I haven't dealt with company affairs for a long time. I have been staying at home doing private research for a while." Tony was confused by what the other party said. He didn't understand what this so-called violence refers to. Christine handed a stack of photos to Tony. "This is a small town named Gumila, have you heard of it?" Tony has definitely heard of it, and he deeply remembers that Gumila is the hometown of his savior, Dr. Ethan. Since the two succeeded in saving themselves, they have separated from each other and have never seen each other. At that time, Ethan said that his family had already died in the hands of terrorists. He wanted to return to his hometown to protect more people and stop letting them experience the pain he had endured. Before parting, Tony also treated Mark as himself. The special magical suit was presented to Dr. Ethan as a gift, hoping to help him and protect his life. But when Tony flipped through the photos handed over by Christine in his hand, he looked at the houses that had been bombarded by artillery fire, and looked at the tragic scene of corpses everywhere, and looked at the horror. With the close-ups of a few big characters on the weapon used by the elements, Tony has been out of anger but appears a little calm. "When were these photos taken?" Tony asked Christine coldly, staring at the photos in his hands. Christine. "Yesterday. I didn't approve any shipments." Tony looked into her eyes and explained. Christine. "But your company approved it." "My company is not equal to me." After saying this, Tony stopped struggling with the female reporter Christine, and even forgot the wine he promised to bring Pepper. He brought these photos directly to Obadiah, who was still interviewing on the red carpet in front of the Disney concert hall, and asked him, "Have you seen these photos? What's the matter?" Obadiah calmly took Tony away from the reporter first, and then said with earnestness, Tony, calm down, don't be so naive." Too true. I used to be naive. When you said, "This is our bottom line, we can't cross it, this is the way we do business," I actually believed it. At that time, I was naive. Didn't tell me half a sentence after that. "Unless we secretly do a double-sided transaction, is that so?" Quote. Facing Tony's pressing question, Obadiah did not show any tension. He approached Tony's ear and said softly, "Tony, who do you think the board of directors signed the injunction order against you?" "I am the one who signed the ban. That is the only way I can protect you. Can you understand my painstaking efforts?" After talking, Obadiah patted Tony on the shoulder, and a meaningful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then he boarded the car and left the meeting, leaving Tony in a daze, still stunned. "Hey, Dad, what are you stupefying here?" Suddenly Mark's familiar voice came from behind, waking Tony in a daze. Mark soared. Tony didn't say a word after he recovered, and slapped him on the back with a slap. "Hiss, it hurts me to death, why are you brat? What do you pretend to be melancholy? You are not the melancholy Prince Robert Baggio. Just now Sister Pepper ran over to ask me where you were. I helped you round the scene and said you went to the bathroom. Unexpectedly, you took the opportunity to cool Pepper on the terrace, but you still have time to spend a days here. If you are misunderstood that you are overflowing with love and hook up with other women, I won't help you explain." Quote. "Oops, forgot to promise Pepper's vodka martini." Come with me and give pepper to Pepper. We're going home. Tony took Mark's hand and walked into the concert hall. So soon, haven't you had time to make a big fuss? Seeing the complicated look on Tony's face, Mark didn't think of what changed him suddenly. It's going to be a big fight, but it's not here. We have to change places. If my company made a mistake, I'll take care of it. The 15-mile hike to the outskirts of the small town of Gumila can only be described as a journey to hell. There are constantly simple farmers and kind peasant women being expelled from their beloved and peaceful homes. And their land was occupied by a group of warlords supported by emerging forces. The villagers were forced to find a place to shelter in the wilderness. According to the investigation, this series of violent actions were blamed on a foreign military gang, and he was named 10 Rings by the locals. As you can see, these people are fully armed and have a clear goal, and those who prevent them from achieving their goals have to die. Without political interference and pressure from the international community, the hope of these refugees is very slim. Tony listened to the news about that violent action that Christine said on the TV, holding a part of the assembled hand armor in his hand for debugging, and the atmosphere was very silent. Mark was beside him without saying a word either. He neither made suggestions about what Tony was about to do, nor did he sympathize with what happened to the villagers of Gumila on TV, because Mark now finally knows that the thing that caused Tony's emotional sudden change was what's wrong, and because of this incident, Mark III is about to debut for the first time. Zeer, boom, zeer, boom, zeer, boom. Suddenly, Tony fired 3-count palm energy cannons in a row, smashing the bulletproof glass on the 3 sides of the garage, and at the same time awakened Mark, who was stupefied. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional, but I just want to try how powerful it is, lest these 10 Rings guys get away by chance. Tony removed his hand armor and stroked his hair, barely calming himself. Mark whispered, Roar called Jarvis, and asked it to turn off the TV. Let Dabai go with you, it can help you. Mark, who already knew what Tony wanted to do, didn't stop him. Now that Tony is determined to become Iron Man, Mark definitely is happy to see him become a better one. However, Mark will never forget the help he can provide. Why do you bring it? It's awkward and slow. When it's pierced by a bullet and leaks, I have to pick it up. Doesn't this take off my hind legs? Tony heard Mark's suggestion, immediately. It was an expression of disgust. Mark wasn't angry at all for Tony's depreciation of the great white he created. He stretched out his finger and shook it left and right. It seems that you haven't seen Dabai in combat form. In combat mode, Dabai can not only help you knock down the enemy, but also provide medical assistance to the injured villagers on the spot. But it doesn't matter. I will make you change your opinion of him. I saw Mark took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. Roar is called Dabai, equipped with combat chips, changed combat suits, and came to the underground garage. Step, step, step. Along with regular footsteps, a red figure walked down the stairs. It was Dabai, who had been changed into a combat form. But unlike the image that Dabai thinks is swaying and naive, at the moment, its pace is very steady. The whole body is wrapped in flame-like red armor. Judging from the sound of its footsteps, the armor is very light and should be made of graphene synthesis materials. The battle form is equipped with my newly designed super combat chip, combined with the powerful power that the super break gives it, making it easy to defeat an enemy. The graphene titanium composite material can provide it with strong protection, ensuring that it can maintain the integrity of the body even if it is hit by a missile at close range, without affecting its operational ability. In addition, a flight device is added to the armor. Through me, the arc reactor updated by Dabai can be powered at a speed of up to Mach 3 per hour. The only pity is that Dabai's kill function is blocked by the system because it is equipped with medical chips to assist the villagers. In other words, Dabai can only help you stun the enemy, and you can only take care of the last remaining step. It is up to you to judge whether the step of definitely kills or is handed over to the law. Quote. After Mark introduced a completely new upgrade to Tony and turned it into a battle form, Tony can only use WTF to vent his shock. You must know that at the moment's Great White is not equipped with a powerful firepower weapon system and cannot kill the enemy. Other equipment and functions are even more advanced than the Mark III that he has not completed yet, and such results are not what Mark ultimately wants. Tony at the moment can't imagine how strong Mark's shape-shifting King Kong is still under development, using the mecha he's competing against. Sir, it's been diagnosed that your heart rate has risen by 30% in a short period of time. You are also accompanied by feelings of anger and surprise. It is a warm reminder that maintaining good mental health and peace of mind is beneficial to your in good health. HMPH, although I have upgraded, I still can't speak as before. Well, as soon as he will follow me, he can help me cover the scene and cooperate with me to rescue the trapped and injured villagers. Tony nodded in agreement with Mark's proposal. He still doesn't know what is going on with Ethan returning to Gumila. Bringing a helper must be beneficial to his plan. Right, Daddy, there is one more thing you have to take. After Tony promised to bring Dubai to help himself, Mark suddenly patted his head and remembered something. Dialing again with his cell phone, Mark said, Magneto, help me get the Baoming one at the head of the bed, hurry up. Baoming no. 1. What weird thing did you come up with? Tony was already quite surprised when he heard Mark give some weird names to the things he invented, but this time Baoming no. 1. This kind of bizarre and extreme naming made Tony feel speechless and choked. Zila Zila, accompanied by the unique sound of the magnetic shafts rubbing against each other, that Magneto in Mark's mouth comes on stage. Reminder that it is only a doll file size. The torso composed of 3 spheres and the limbs composed of 6 cones form this simple structured and simple magnetic robot. Magneto is a magnetic robot connected by a magnetic shaft system. The body can move 360 degrees without dead angles, and can be assembled and changed at will. The built-in high-speed centrifugal motor and graphene battery can make it extremely running at a high speed for an hour as a new gadget I developed. Mark even introduced the principle and structure of Magneto to Tony. Tony raised an eyebrow. The idea is good, but business development has to be discussed carefully. These will be discussed later. What I am most interested in now is the Baoming number. 1. Where is it? Hey, Mark reached out and pointed Magneto's head. That is the small disc that Magneto's head is attracted to magnetically. Tony heard the words and took a closer look. He just saw the adsorbent on the head of the mini Magneto with a transparent disc slightly larger than the fingernail. Feeling Tony's impatient curiosity, Mark explained with a triumphant smile, Baoming no 1 is actually a graphene-integrated chip, but I added some special functions to it. The first is the backup battery function. I have compressed and folded the graphene material used tens of thousands of times. Without changing the properties of graphene, it has an ultra-high energy storage density, which can be used as a backup energy for your chest electromagnet to maintain the magnet. Normal work time for 15 minutes. After all, you have to use the reactor in your chest as the battle suit function. If the energy consumption is not well controlled by the hot blood, then life-saving no 1 can really help you save your life. 15 minutes is enough for you to find a sustainable energy source for your chest. The device is powered up. The second function is the automatic help function. The sensor on the chip can detect your vital signs. When you encounter an emergency, it will actively send out a distress signal, and I give all the robots at home and my mobile phone back. Nini, who has Sister Pepper, is equipped with a signal receiving device, and the device closest to you will come to help you after receiving the signal. Moreover, the installation of Baoming no 1 is very simple, no wiring is required, just stick it on the top of the arc reactor. Quote. Good stuff. After Tony listened, he took the Lifetime no 1 from Magneto and attached it to the arc reactor on his chest. Are there any good things to take out? Old Dad, I'm ready to go to the battlefield, don't hide it, kid. After seeing the power of Mark's invention several times, Tony is now convinced of the practicality of these things. Like the previous disaster in Afghanistan, it was Mark's magic suit that had been a long time ago, and his lifesaver Ethan died. Now he has to face the muskets and cannons of 10 rings again. Although he is more prepared this time, the defense and attack power of the battle suit are also stronger, but he has lost the psychological construction of the last fight, and there is still some tension in his heart, so Tony, I also hope that Mark's invention can bring some support to my heart. Yes, and it's still a weapon. But it hasn't been tested for safety, so I don't know if it should be given to you. After all, this is the first time I have made such a dangerous thing. Mark's face became a little nervous, as if he was in fear of thinking of the power of the weapon. Then you should show it to me even more. I am an expert in weapon design. Stark Industries used to point to the weapon I designed to eat. Hearing even Mark himself judged it as dangerous. Tony's interest is even greater with his weapons, and in the face of those fierce and brutal terrorists, he should use dangerous weapons against them. Well, wait for me. I locked it in the safe in the room. I have to go up and get it. Mark hesitation for a while, thinking that it would be a good idea to let Tony help the staff, went back to the room and took out this dangerous invention. Soon, Mark came downstairs with a suitcase. Click. Mark put the box on the workbench in the garage and opened the fingerprint verification lock on it. The box opened, and Tony finally got a glimpse of the true face of this dangerous weapon. It was a heavy black pistol with mahogany decorative dots on both sides of the handle. The gun body does not have an opening for loading and unloading the magazine, and even the muzzle is different from the spiral ballistic structure of the traditional gun, but an open muzzle. Father, pick it up and try it. Hearing Mark's request, Tony took it from the box, and heard a prompt sound in his ear. Identity authentication is successful, the user is Tony Stark, the license is confirmed, the Dominator has been started up. At the same time, the hollow part of the gun body also emits a blue gloomy light. The safety device of the gun body is turned on, and this weapon has officially entered the working state. Now you should have heard the alert tone. It is a voice that only people with weapons can hear. It is called a Dominator, and it is a pistol that can distinguish the threat level of the target to the holder and adopt different attack modes. Quote. Identify the threat level. What's the matter with the voice just now, as if it was ringing in my ears? What kind of technology is this? When the Dominator was really in his hands, Tony, a super genius and expert in weapon design, immediately knew how extraordinary it was. The identification of threats and the voice you just heard are my application of brain-computer interface technology. By collecting the brain idea information that the target unconsciously escapes, the graphene-integrated core inside the Dominator can threaten it. Determine the degree to unlock different attack modes. The application of prompt sounds is the reverse, turning information into thought waves that the brain can directly accept, directly stimulating the auditory center to achieve the effect of information transmission. Another application is its aiming system, which will stimulate the visual center of the brain through thought waves, projecting the sight of the target directly onto the retina. It can be said to be a foolish operation that can hit the target as long as the trigger is pulled. And you can make JARVIS as a combat auxiliary system to connect with the Dominator. I have opened up the authority of JARVIS. You can aim the gun at me now, but don't pull the trigger, as I said it has not been tested for safety. Quote. Tony nodded, pointed his gun at Mark, and took his finger from the trigger. Sure enough, as Mark said, when Tony wanted to aim at Mark, a sight-assisting sight immediately appeared in front of him, just like a holographic projection. The blue front sight helped Tony lock Mark easily, and then the change occurred. The entire auxiliary aiming interface turned red, and a new prompt sound came from the ear. The target threat value is judged to be 37. There is no intention to attack, no carrying weapons, the threat value is less than 100, and the Dominator insurance is locked. This was when Tony looked at the Dominator in his hand again. The blue gloom on the gun had dimmed, and it was obvious that the gun body's safety was locked as notified by the alert tone. However, for safety reasons, Tony didn't even pull the trigger to try it out. The design is perfect. From auxiliary aiming to threat determination, they are beyond the active weapons of the military of various countries, and can even be said to be weapons that are ahead of an era. But the Dominator has neither a magazine for loading ammunition nor a conductive copper wire. You can say that it is a dangerous weapon, it can only be its attack method, right? From the design to the use of the Dominator, it can be said that it is a product with full marks, but the most important and critical thing is its attack method. As a weapon, only lethality is the only scoring criterion. Indeed, you guessed it right. Mark nodded and tapped the phone screen in his hand a few times, and the design of the Dominator was holographically projected. I set a variety of execution modes when designing the Dominator. In different modes, the firearms can be shape-shifted into different forms. The choice of mode is determined by the system according to the degree of danger of the object. When the threat value of the target is judged to have not reached the reference value or the holder is not a person with login permission, the trigger is locked by the system and cannot be fired. If the threat value of the targeted object exceeds the specified value above 100, the insurance will be automatically released, and at that stage, the selection of the system and the effect of shooting can be changed. After the insurance is lifted, the ruler will enter the first basic mode anesthesia gun. If the threat value of the target exceeds 100 but does not exceed 300, the dominated person immediately loses resistance and faints after being hit, except for those who definitely take large doses of stimulants or psychotropic drugs. If the target's threat value exceeds 300, it can be converted to the second execution mode when the object is judged to be threatening and aggressive. The hit part and surrounding tissues will instantly swell, and finally burst, belonging to fatal mode. The third execution mode is the molecular decomposition gun, which takes about 3 seconds to accumulate the corresponding energy. After the launch, a large energy ball is shot from the muzzle to directly destroy the target, breaking the target into molecules, leaving no debris. It is very effective for people and can cause huge cave-like damage to machines. The molecular decomposition gun mode is generally not activated, and only users with the highest authority of the system can force this mode to be activated when the threat value of the target is higher than 500. The firearm is powered by the internal miniature version of the arc reactor, and the power of the high-energy microwave generator in the gun body is adjusted to achieve the killing effect in 3 different modes. Speaking of the anesthesia gun, you should be impressed. I improved it with the prototype of the ultrasonic version when I was 6 years old. Compared with the previous one, it only temporarily lost mobility. Ability, this time it can really make people pass out in a coma. However, I haven't tested the power range of each mode, and the safety of the safety device and the system has not been tested, so it will be more dangerous than I described. But since you have requested it, I think you are going to be a hero anyway. Why don't you help me conduct a practical test for the Dominator, collect some parameters, and then I will be able to make adjustments and improvements. Quote, "This is indeed a terrible weapon." Even Tony shuddered as he looked at the Dominator in his hand. As a weapon design master, he has seen countless powerful weapons and designed individual weapons like the Mark series battle suit, but none of them surprised him. Especially in the lethal mode, as long as the hit is hit, there is no survivor's design logic, which makes Tony feel that even if he wears a steel battle suit, he can't resist the attack of the Dominator at all. After a panic, Tony shook his head and smiled bitterly. If I hadn't shut down the weapons department of Stark Industries, I think the Dominator would be the best-selling weapon of all time. But now it seems it can only be viewed by a few people forever. But Mark shrugged and looked indifferent. I didn't intend to let the Dominator be mass-produced. The purpose of creating the Dominator is just to prove whether the idea in his head is really okay, accomplished. After all, the object targeted by it, no matter how high the threat value is judged by the system, we cannot use it as a basis for shooting. If the Dominator is really allowed to circulate, then it may really become the Dominator of human society just like its name. Quote, "Well, a weapon as dangerous as the Dominator can only be tested by me for you. How about the assembly of JARVIS, Mark III? Tony put the Dominator in his hand back into the box, and then asked JARVIS about Mark III. Sir, it is expected that the assembly will be completed in 1 hour. In 1 hour, Mark will project the design of the high-energy microwave generator you designed. We are now determining a rough threshold. When the detailed data is available, I will ask JARVIS to assist in the recording." Just 1 hour was fleeting, and for the 2 mechanical fans who were immersed in the experimental test, this time was not enough for them to toss about. The 2 of them just roughly measured the power supply in the 3 modes of the Dominator, and the Jarvis reminder sounded in the garage. "Sir, Mark III has been assembled, and the red gold has been carried out according to your requirements. Color matching." Tony then remembered that he still had a plan to rescue the town of Gumila, reluctantly let go of the Dominator in his hand, and ordered, JARVIS, prepare to dress. "Received, sir." Tony put on a black tights and came to the anchor point on the dressing table. Sensing that Tony was in place, the floor on the dressing table began to flip shapeshifting. Mark III, which had been assembled by the robotic arm, rose from below the ground with a group of robotic arms that assisted in dressing. Tony looked at Mark III, who had risen in front of him, and stepped on it without hesitation. Then the robotic arm immediately followed up, splicing the red and gold matched leg armor and tightening the connection structure. At this time, as the retreat armor has been dressed, 4 sets of mechanical arms have also been stretched from the ceiling, and the parts they are installed corresponding to the breastplate, back armor, and left and right arm armor of Mark III. After the breastplate was connected, the arc reactor on Tony's chest was also connected to the entire battle suit as the energy system of Mark III. After the armors of the limbs and torso were all dressed, Mark III's red helmet with a golden face mask was also tightly combined and snapped onto Tony's head. Click, the mask closed, and the blue light on the eyes of the mask lit up, which indicated that Tony had finished his outfit and was ready to go. Be careful and pay attention to safety. Dubai, help me take care of the smelly old man. Mark put his hands on the chair he was sitting in, and his 10 fingers clasped tightly on the side of the chair revealed his worry and nervousness. Dubai received it. Dubai will do his best to protect the old master. Don't worry, call and order some cheeseburgers for me. When I come back to have lunch together, I'm leaving. Tony rushed out of the underground garage after comforting Mark and rushed into the night. Upon seeing this, Dubai also unfolded the flight aileron behind him, and followed with a swish of the propulsion system. I hope everything goes as smoothly as in the movie, but don't have anything wrong because of the arrival of my little butterfly, Mark murmured worriedly. But what he didn't know was that the reason Tony left in a hurry as soon as he had finished speaking was because he didn't want him to know that he was moved by the caring words and almost shed tears. In order to conceal his cry and preserve his dignity as an old man, Tony fled the scene at the speed of light. Boom. Ah, forgive me, forgive me. Go to hell. Crisis and chaos, slaughter and begging for mercy. This chaotic place is the hometown of Dr. Ethan, who used to be peaceful in the past Gumila. And Doctor at the moment Ethan is also struggling to fulfill his promise on this homeland reduced to a battlefield. When Ethan and Tony were separated, he made a wish to return to his hometown to protect this land and the happiness of the families that have lived on it for generations. But now, what Dr. Ethan can do is to protect the lives of as many as possible of his compatriots. And sending them out of Gumila means sending them on a journey of hell through the desert on foot. For the residents of Gumila who have just escaped the threat of war without any food or tools, this is tantamount to drinking poison to quench their thirst. But even so, it was their only alternative way out now, and Dr. Ethan had to reluctantly help them embark on this dangerous escape route. Because even wearing a magical suit, he has an advantage in number and weapons, and even holding a hostage 10 rings in his hand, Ethan is powerless. He only compromises with reality again and again, and hypnotic ability himself is the only one who retains hope. Way out. Quick, quick, the guys of 10 rings are already approaching, you have to go through here quickly. At a secret exit from Gumila, Ethan, who escorted the villagers, was eagerly urging the people who were passing because of him. The magical suit that Tony gave to him and was developed by Mark with passion, the built-in smart system is already warning him. Da 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 da. Before the villagers passed completely, the gunshots of the 10 rings terrorists had already sounded, stop them and catch all the women in the car. The villagers who had not had time to escape immediately were controlled by the people from 10 rings who rushed over. Even Ethan, who had a magical suit, did not fight back, because he knew that once he resisted, even because of the high-tech suit on him. You can save your own lives, but the children around him and their fathers and mothers will lose their most precious lives and relatives because of their own impulse. So he can only wait for the opportunity to find an opportunity to help everyone escape. But when everyone had surrendered with their hands up, a little boy saw his father about to be escorted away by the 10 rings men, broke free from the embrace of his mother who was protecting him, and rushed to his father's side. Seeing that the order established under his own horror was overthrown, the angry leader held the boy by the collar with his hands, threw him to the side, then kicked the boy's father down. Give him to me execution, let them know the end of disobedience. After a terrorist armed with a gun in 10 rings got the order, he was holding the man and was about to shoot and kill in front of the boy. No, Dad. The little boy, who was held tightly in his arms by his mother, let out a sorrowful cry. Just when Ethan and everyone on the scene were desperate, buzz boom. A red and gold figure fell from the sky. It seems that I am not too late. Tony, wearing the gorgeous Mark III, fell from the sky, causing everyone present to fall into a short-term loss of consciousness. A terrorist from 10 rings was too panicked and took the lead in pulling the trigger of the rifle, da 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 da. Clang clang clang, all the bullets that fell on Tony left a white mark on Mark III, and lost momentum and fell to the ground. However, before Tony could fight back against the terrorist, another fat red figure fell from the sky and directly overwhelmed him to the ground, preventing him from continuing to fire and attack Tony. Master, please specify the first task and confirm the start of the operation. The first task is to protect the villagers and start acting. When Tony gave an order, Dabai's sturdy body immediately became like a spring compressed to the extreme, and with a bang it ejected in front of an enemy holding a hostage. The program in the battle chip was activated immediately. Bang bang bang. Dabai with two chubby fists in continuous Japanese punches, he bent like an iron rod and lay down on the ground. Refer to Ip Man 1, I want to hit 10. Due to the inability to kill in the system, after confirming that the target was unconscious, Dabai did not use the ultimate move to end the enemy. Instead, he ejected again and found the next target. It's complicated, but Dabai has a huge body, but because of its inflatable structure, the body is still very light. Coupled with the super break in the body, after a dozen of 10 combat powers have been continuously reduced by 10 rings, time has only passed 6 seconds. Dabai's body was covered with high-strength graphene composite material, and the enemy's firepower could not cause damage to him at all, so it soon rescued all the villagers from 10 rings. On the other hand, 10 rings had to be restrained by Tony. When they reacted, they had no capital that could threaten Tony. At the same time, after all the villagers in the Debeijing were rescued, Ethan, who was not bound, also joined the battle. With the trio of them, the 10 rings team was wiped out without a fight back. Tony, is that you? Without the threat of the enemy, Ethan walked towards Tony wearing the Mark III battle suit too excitedly. Although separated by the mask, he knew that there was no one in this world who could make such a delicate and powerful armor, except for the father and son of the Stark family. Seeing Ethan coming, Tony also opened his mask and opened his arms to give him a big hug. It's been a long time, Ethan, it's great to see you alive. Ethan's eyes were a little red, and he looked very excited. Thanks to the suit you gave me, it helped me save the lives of many compatriots. Tony patted the opponent's back lightly. Don't worry, I will help you. You wait for me for a while, I will destroy the 10 rings arsenal, and we will talk later. Dabai, be optimistic about the guys who were knocked out. We haven't got the data Mark needs for him yet. Quote. After speaking, Tony stepped back a few steps, separated from Dr. Ethan, and then activated his thrusters and went straight to the target's arsenal. Seeing the red and gold mech attack, the tank guarding the weapon arsenal on the ground of 10 rings unexpectedly launched an air-to-air missile and successfully shot down Tony. However, in the face of all kinds of air combat weapons, the unfavorable air-to-air missiles did not cause harm to the Mark III, which used graphene coating and gold titanium alloy, and the internal cushioning system helped the fallen Tony very well. Absorbed the energy generated by the impact, protecting him from being affected. Unharmed, Tony quickly stood up from the ground, locked the only tank in the arsenal with the aiming system, fired a miniature armor-piercing projectile, and destroyed it. Then, all the stock of Stark Industrial munitions was detonated through the palm cannon. After completing all this, Tony and Dabai assisted Ethan to transfer the remaining villagers in the town of Gumila, and only then found a place to sit down and reminisce about the past. Is this your latest armor? As soon as he took his seat, Ethan couldn't wait to talk to Tony about the Mark III he was wearing. Yes, since I went back and announced the closure of the weapons department of Stark Industries, I have been developing a new generation of battle suit with Mark in retreat. Now this set is the 3rd generation of battle suit Mark III. Speaking of which, I need to apologize to you for the suffering Gumila has endured, Ethan. I did not expect that the shareholders of the board of directors would continue to secretly sell the weapons of Stark Industrial inventory to terrorists behind their backs. I'm sorry. Quote. Tony apologized and bowed 90 degrees to Ethan. Don't do this. Ethan immediately got up and helped him up. Even if there is no Stark Industries, there will be other weapon manufacturers. Terrorists can always get what they want by various means, not to mention. You can't help yourself, so how can I blame you? And thanks to the magical suit you gave me, I have ability to help some of my compatriots escape from this place. I should be grateful to you and Mark. Quote. Don't say that, you are my savior. Tony put his hand on the other's shoulder. Don't worry, I will arrange manpower when I go back to help you settle the refugees in the town. Thank you, Tony, Ethan said gratefully. By the way, this time I came here not only to solve Gumila's troubles, but also to help Mark test his new invention. Would you like to take a look at it together? Tony also knows that since he has experienced the magic of the magical suit after that, Ethan became an iron fan of his son, and Mark's new invention would definitely be of interest to the other party. Okay. As Tony expected, Ethan was so excited that he jumped up when he heard the invitation. Gumila's compatriots are out of danger, and my work has come to an end. Now I am relaxed. Plenty of time. Let's go. Dabai, bring the test product. Tony gave an order, and the fate of the captured 10 Rings members had been decided. In a paddock, dozens of 10 Rings members who were stunned and captured by Dabai gradually regained consciousness and stood up from the ground. However, they stayed in place. No one escaped here, because at the only exit in front of them, Tony in Mark III was standing there with Dabai and Ethan, staring at them quietly. After everyone had woken up, Tony didn't say a word to them, and directly raised the Dominators and started aiming one by one. The threat value is below 100, and the insurance is locked. The threat value is below 100, and the insurance is locked. The threat value is 220, the insurance has been unlocked, and the ruler's first basic mode is on. After experimenting with several targets in a row, the Dominator's prompt changed. Dabai, scan the man in the red turban. Received. The scan begins, the scan ends. The other party has a micro bomb hidden in his body, which can be detonated by a switch hidden in his belt. It seems that the other party is not ready to detonate the bomb, and the threat value does not exceed 300. After a little analysis, Tony guessed the reason why the Dominator judged his threat value like this. In this case, let's proceed to the next step. After that, Tony pulled the trigger directly at the man in the red turban according to the aiming aid of the Dominator. Zir. After a flash of blue light from the Dominator's muzzle, the threatening red-hooded man in the distance had fallen on his back, unconscious. Dabai, I'm scanning once to record the other party's body data. Tony ordered Dabai again. The scan started, the scan ended. According to the comparison of the two scan results, the target mission did not suffer irreversible damage. He is currently in a superficial coma and is expected to wake up on his own in 30 minutes. The effect is good. It seems that Mark has worked hard on the calculations. This is where Ethan looked at Tony's hand with a design that is comparable to the art of art, and asked, is this Mark's new invention? What is the principle of anesthesia? How to achieve this? What about the long-range range? Can it be used in medicine? After listening to Ethan's endless questions, Tony shook his head with a wry smile. You ask so many questions, how can I answer you? This sentence is Mark's new invention and the first weapon invented, the Dominator. It uses a built-in high-energy microwave generator to form a stunning effect. The possibility of using it in medicine has to be known through clinical trials and FDA review. But if you think this is just an anesthesia gun, then you are very wrong. He is the same as its name, the real Dominator. Quote. Speaking, Tony threw a seized machine gun to the awake 10 Rings members, and then shouted, pick it up, defeat me, and you have a chance to escape from here. Tony, you are crazy. Ethan said that he couldn't understand Tony's abnormal behavior. Ethan, you will understand when you look at it. The terrorists in the paddock look at me, I look at you, but hesitated to take the lead. After all, the three guys on the opposite side had just defeated their brave performance, and they are still in their minds. Go. But after all, there was a guy who dared to give up. After a long struggle, a man with a beard stood up first and picked up the machine gun on the ground. He had already decided that as long as he rushed to the seemingly weakest and thinnest Ethan among the three, and took him hostage, then he would have a great chance to consolidate and escape safely. However, what he didn't know was that when evil thoughts arose in his mind, the Dominator who had been aiming at him had already reported his threat value to the gunman Tony. The target threat value exceeds 300, the insurance is cancelled, the second execution mode is turned on, and the target is allowed to be killed. After receiving the signal, Tony did not hesitation, and directly squeezed the trigger of the Dominator, boom. The bearded man who has been surviving on the battlefield of bullets for a long time seems to have some induction. He actually threw to the right at the same time, without letting the shot hit his deadly part. However, before he cheered for his timely evasion, the tremendous impact of pain and panic would have caused him to lose all his energy. I saw his eyes widened, watching his left arm, which was rubbed by the attack of the dominated person, inflated like an inflated balloon, and the swelling began to spread. Finally, after the swelling spread to his whole body, bang! The bearded man exploded like a balloon filled with red ink. Except for the bright red blood, a bright red machine gun, and some unrecognizable residual limbs on the ground, anything that could recognize his identity did not stay. The target has been eliminated, the insurance is locked. After receiving the notification sound from the Dominator, looking at the shocking scene in front of him, even Tony, who had already learned about the effect from Mark before, couldn't help being dumbfounded and trembling. Not to mention the Ethan beside him and the 10 Rings members in the paddock, they were all shocked by such an impactful scene, and no one even screamed in panic. Is this Mark's new invention? It's really terrifying. Where is the ruler? This is simply a tyrant. Ethan, who finally recovered, turned his head and murmured in a low voice. It was like thinking about Tony's question, and it was like talking to himself too surprised. At the next moment, the terrorists who were too afraid of the Tony trio's strength to move, all rushed into the pool of blood on the ground at this moment. Their purpose was to fight for the machine gun, but not to resist the Tony trio, nor to escape from here, but to get an easy way to die without having to experience the terrifying experience just now. Yes, they are fighting for a chance to commit suicide. But Tony would not give them such an opportunity. I ordered with the highest authority to turn on the third execution mode. The highest authority authentication is passed, the third execution mode of the Dominator is turned on, and the energy is being accumulated. 3, 2, 1, please execute the molecular decomposition mode. Tony looked at the 10 Rings terrorists who had gathered around the machine gun, and gently pulled the trigger. Z. Boom. Ethan on the side saw only a glare of blue light flashing, and he closed his eyes subconsciously. When he opened his eyes again, he and Tony were left in the entire enclosure, and the other prisoners, including the first stunned man with a red turban, had disappeared, even the blood stains. None of them stayed. Molecular decomposition gun. Mark, your invention this time really scared Lao Su and I. Clang. With a cheeseburger in one hand and Happy Fat House water in the other, Mark looked at Tony, who landed safely in the garage. It's very fast. How about Dubai? It's still in Gumila. I let it stay there for the time being to take care of the local refugees. When I arrange for a Stark Charity Foundation staff to take over it, it should be back in the evening. Tony took off his mask and took off. I grabbed the Fat House water at the door and drank it. Roar, it's so cool. Why do you look so embarrassed? You should have help. It shouldn't be so difficult to solve the mobs in 10 Rings. Seeing his father's somewhat stiff expression and the deep dents on Mark number 3, Mark frowned and asked Rode. It's nothing, but when I came back, I played hide and seek with the 2 big birds for a while, but I was not a ghost. What about the burger you prepared for me? Why didn't I see my share? Tony didn't explain in detail. The subject changed with a guilty conscience. Mark shrugged. Who knew you would come back so early? I only ordered my own share, and there is half of it here. Would you like it? Mark held the 2-bite cheeseburger in front of Tony with a mischievous smile on his face. Unexpectedly, Tony didn't mind. He reached out and took the burger over. Don't even think about sending me that way. If I can't eat my favorite cheeseburger in half an hour, your Dominator's measured data don't think I'll send it to you, After speaking, Tony gave a big mouth, and in a few clicks he solved most of the hamburger in his hand. But Mark's mouth clicked, and he looked indifferent. Then you are doomed to be disappointed. I have your measured data stored in my private server in real time. I can check it at any time now, ha ha ha. Tony angrily drank the remaining half a cup of Happy Fat House water. Without the handle to threaten Mark, he couldn't help but sulking himself. JARVIS, help me disarm. Tony stood on the dressing table and gave orders to JARVIS. But after a while, Tony's little temper had all disappeared, and only Tony's screams of, ah, oh, and, yo, were left in the garage, as well as Mark's belly laughing on the other side. Ha ha, sounded. Sir, please bear with me for a while. The Mark III you designed is too close to your skin. The more you twist, the more painful it will become. Be gentle, Jarvis. This is the first time I have designed it to take off, so I should really be able to. Oh. It caught my hair. Do you want me to become bald? Quote. Please try not to move, sir. If you really want to keep your hair, please wear a hair cover before the next battle suit. Ha ha ha, Jarvis. I like your sense of humor more and more. Mark was right on the side to make up for Tony. Huh, brat, you, oh yeah, be lighter. What's going on here? Pepper, who came to report to Tony, couldn't smile at all when he saw the scene that made Mark's belly laugh. Are those bullet holes? Trust me, it's never as bad as you see. 20 minutes later, Tony, who finally took off the battle suit, was so weak that he collapsed on the sofa. It's too difficult. As expected, the suit shouldn't pursue the so-called close-fitting fashion. I start to miss Mark I's style. It's loose and comfortable. Now, eat some. You have to think about how to explain this to Sister Pepper. At this time, Mark carried a takeaway bag and placed it on the coffee table in front of Tony. Didn't you say you didn't order my one? Tony opened the bag and saw that it was his favorite cheeseburger and a glass of Happy Fat House water. Now I don't want to worry about the troubles. Just now, with some difficulty, Pepper was sent away. The explanation can only be resigned to fate. It's just to tease you. How about it? Have you found any flaws in the design of the Dominator after actually using it? The topic of the door bar brought to the Dominator he cared most about. No, everything is perfect. In other words, the disadvantage of the ruler should be that it is too perfect. Everything is judged by the rule set by the system, and the holder only has the right to pull the trigger, plus the extreme the killing method of visual impact. The Dominator may really be able to dominate its holder and become a cold and ruthless killing machine. Regarding Tony's comments, Mark also touched the slightly growing stubble chin, lowered his head and thought for a while, and then said, what about adding a user psychological testing program? If the user has already psychological fluctuations begin to appear, so after the ruler determines that his state is not suitable for continued use, he temporarily suspends his authority to use the second and third execution modes. How about this? Yes, but you must be cautious about the authorization of the authorized person. After all, the power of the Dominator makes weapons experts like me stunned. Tony nodded, agreeing with Mark's idea. Don't worry, such a cool weapon must definitely be the exclusive weapon of our Stark family. I don't plan to authorize it to others. Smart. My Mark series battle suit is the same. It's my exclusive battle suit. No one else wants to get involved. At this point, Tony is also proud and contented. Cut. No one will be interested in your battle suit until my shapeshifting King Kong is developed. Mark said unwillingly. For the face of the cheeseburger, I don't care about my son. Tony ignored Mark's provocation, grabbed the cheeseburger on the table and ate it. Seeing that Tony could not provoke Tony's anger, Mark curled his lips and turned on the TV to follow today's current affairs news. Earlier today, an Air Force Raptor F-22 was accidentally crashed during the flight exercise of Gumila. Fortunately, the flight crew was not injured. As for the unexpected reversal of the situation in the town of Gumila, who or what intervened, we still don't know. But I can swear that at the moment has nothing to do with our government. Quote. Looking at the TV, Colonel Rod faced the media report of the accident. Mark turned his head in amazement and looked at Tony. You said hide and seek with Big Bird. It's not the Raptor F-22 fighter that Uncle Rod said. I think my analogy is very vivid. What do you think? I think you are crazy. Don't make a fuss, just give them a better one. The people in the Air Force can't do anything with me anyway. They need me to design the engine for the Quinjet they are developing recently. Tony shrugged indifferently. I shrugged and ate another bite of cheeseburger. I think you are a dead pig and you are not afraid of boiling water. Uncle Rod must have helped you hide the matter. Otherwise, the high-ranking officials of the Ministry of National Defense and the military will definitely bring you to court and persecute you on various charges. Let's call the steel battle suit technology a country and hand it over to the country. Mark knows the future development of events, and reminds his father in advance. They were thinking about Peach. Lao Tzu's things, they don't want to get involved. Let's not talk about it, just wait for this kind of thing to happen before you deal with it. The legal team and public relations team I took over are not vegetarian, no matter if they want to write or come to martial arts, litigate or build fishing vessels. I just pick up one by one. By the way, I will help you to register a sole proprietorship in your name. The company has already been established. The name is Mark Stark Technology R&D Center. You are the person in charge of the enterprise and bear unlimited responsibility for the debts of the enterprise. But you are not an adult yet, I will guarantee you as a guardian. Quote. You didn't even confirm the company name with me, so you decided it yourself. Mark originally thought Tony was busy developing the battle suit, but he hadn't had time to fulfill this matter. He didn't expect that the company would have done it when he heard the news again, and I didn't pick the name by myself. With your name, can you get a good name? Tony's words were too heartbreaking, but he took the point. Mark was speechless when he faced his rhetorical question, holding all the words back into his stomach. Although he doesn't want to admit it, after suffering so many attacks in more than 10 years, Mark can be regarded as tacitly acquiescing his naming day. Look, I'm speechless, so since I have to change it for you in the end, then I decided directly to be more efficient. And the name is your sister Pepper's help. If you have any comments, go with it. She said it was done. Then I have no problem, Mark said grievously. That's not enough. Tony put the last bit of cheeseburger in his mouth and swallowed it roundly. Okay, I have to go to Pepper to explain Mark number 3 clearly, and cultivate the feelings by the way. How about sending you to the office of your new company? You should remember to leave me your own laboratory. Mark raised his head to look at him with interest. Don't worry, all equipment is arranged for you in accordance with my standards, and your laboratory is a new energy pilot for the arc reactor. The electricity for all equipment is provided by the underground arc reactor, which is expected to be uninterrupted. Used for more than 200 years. Yeah, hearing Tony's description of his new laboratory, Mark jumped for joy. For a scientific maniac, what could be more attractive than a laboratory where he can realize all his ideas in his head? Woolen cloth. After a brief cleaning of his clothes, Tony drove Mark to a science and technology park an hour away from Stark Villa. This science and technology park is a high-tech entrepreneurial park designed and built by Stark Group, which integrates production and R&D. All technology startups that have received investment from Stark Group or related companies approved by Stark Group can enter this science and technology park. The park only charges a small amount of management fees and rents far below the market price from the settled companies every year, but this does not mean that you can enjoy this welfare policy without worry after you settle in. If the annual scientific research results are not recognized by the evaluation department of the Stark Group, it is very likely to be driven out of the park, and even the Stark Group will stop investing in this company and sell its shares. But this is not a problem for Mark. Needless to say, he was originally the prince of the Stark Group. During this time, he also took advantage of the shutdown of the Stark Industrial Weapons Department and gained a lot of shares in the Stark Group in the stock market. Just by creating ability with Mark's own invention, he is confident that he will pass this so-called year-end audit 100%. The car drove through the carefully greened road in the park, and finally stopped in front of a small 6-story building covered with dark green glass curtain walls. When he arrived at the gate, there was no security or receptionist at the gate. Tony brushed his face on the facial recognition device outside the gate, and the glass door was automatically unlocked and opened. While leading Mark to walk inward, he explained, the building is currently only doing decoration design and office equipment procurement, without any intelligent design. I know that you can't transfer this part to others, so I will leave it to you. Fiddled with it myself. The first floor is the reception room and dining area, the second to third floors are public office areas, and the fourth to fifth floors are high-rise offices. And the top sixth floor is your private laboratory, equipped with the most advanced protective hardware. As for the system and intelligent assistance, it is still left to you freely. How is it? Okay. Quote, taking Mark all the way to the laboratory on the 6th floor, seeing him staring at the various equipment in one go with excitement, Tony said proudly. It's okay, you go find Sister Pepper, I can't wait to transform this into my private kingdom. After saying that, Mark really can't wait to turn on the computer and start to design the intelligent office building. Started planning with the building control system. Tony curled his lips and rolled his eyes at him. Then I'll go first, you can do it slowly. Later, I will notify the personal secretary I chose for you to come over and explain the staff's situation to you and send you home by the way. Mark looked at the computer intently and didn't reply. He just stretched out his left hand and made an, okay, gesture, then waved his palm vigorously to signal Tony, you are no longer needed here, let's go. Single quote. This kid, in this kind of place, it is really the same as me. Tony turned and left the laboratory on the 6th floor, went downstairs and started the car to leave the park. I have a headache when I think of explaining to Pepper later. Suddenly Tony patted the steering wheel regretfully. Oh, I should be fine just now. Okay, I asked Mark what should I do, what happened to him. I'm too proud to forget it. No, you have to check the guide online first. How to make an ambiguous object happy, how to explain to others that the other person will not be angry. Tony just parked his car on the side of the road and started to check Love Strategy 2.0 on the internet. The poor guy still didn't know that the so-called raiders on the internet were all self-exhausted by a group of otaku keyboard men. I won't waste time on things other than my girlfriend. Chapter 31. California, an abandoned railway hub. At the moment, there are many adult men dressed in the Middle East and armed with weapons. A bonfire was burning all around, and there were patrols on the periphery, just like a military powerhouse. At this time, a black business car tore through the night and drove slowly from a distance. But what is strange is that this tightly guarded base did not stop the car that was out of place and let it enter the interior of the base. The vehicles came to the hinterland of the center, and the guards became more tightly guarded. After the car stopped, a black bodyguard wearing a body armor and holding a Stark Industrial fully automatic rifle came down and opened the door for the big shot in the back seat. And it was no one else who got out of the car, it was Tony's dear Uncle Obadiah. Welcome. It was a scar-faced man who was speaking. If Tony at the moment were here, he would be able to easily recognize the identity of this person, the little leader of 10 Rings who kidnapped him. And here is a temporary base they secretly established after they smuggled into America. Obadiah Sheeran, who got out of the car, walked to the scar-faced man who welcomed him. Seeing the comfortable expression on his face, it is obvious that this is not the first time he has met this group of terrorists. When he came to the Scarface man, Obadiah did not respond to his welcome, but with a high smile, staring at the scar on his face as if ironically. The scarred man didn't show any timidity, and pointed to the man on his face and said to him, "This is a gift that Tony Stark left me." Hearing this, Obadiah's face became more mocking. If you can kill him when it's time to kill him, then you won't lose your face. After understanding the pun's irony of the other party, the Scarface man was a little angry and said, "You only gave us such a small amount of money, so he counts on us to help you kill a big shot." However, Obadiah did not give him a chance to continue complaining. He pointed to the purpose of the trip without a trace of sympathy in his words, "Hit me to see that weapon. Come on, leave your bodyguard outside." The Scarface paused and agreed to the request. Their 10 Rings battle suit has been around for a while, but it is limited by funding and cultural level. Even if there is a ready-made model, plus the drawings recorded by Tony during the monitoring, the illiterate 10 Rings are still can't find a way to replicate this set of battle suit. In this case, you can only find a partner who is literate, funded, and more importantly, ambitious, to accomplish this goal. Once this plan is reached, they will not only have the most powerful force, but also a source of constantly money. After thinking about it, they finally selected the right person for this partner, Obadiah Stein, an ambitionist who tried to kill Tony Stark and seize his company's industry. And their meeting tonight is to negotiate this business. Obadiah showed a gesture, motioned to his bodyguard to stay outside, and then followed the scar-faced man into a simple tent. I opened the curtain, and as soon as Tony entered the cave in Afghanistan, Mark No. 1, which was also handcrafted by Ethan, came into view. His eyes glowed with greed, just like the eyes of cats at night. Even the rough patchwork of the illiterate 10 Rings did not prevent him from appreciating it as the most beautiful artwork in the world. He ran away, but left us a little surprise. The scar-faced man introduced Obadiah's gaze somewhat proudly. "So this is his secret weapon for escaping the cave alone?" Obadiah asked, but his eyes were fixed on every part of Mark I. "This is just a preliminary product. Tony Stark has perfected its design and has created a masterpiece of murder. As long as a person possesses a few pieces of such equipment, he can rule Asia. And you are eager to get the throne of Stark, we all have a common enemy." The Scarface man expressed his huge amounts of wild hope in a calm tone. Obadiah looked away from Mark I, turned his head and glanced at him, indicating that the other party could continue speaking. "We can continue to talk about business, and I can give you these designs as a gift." In return, I hope you can build an army of iron warriors for me all the time." Obadiah did not reply, but looked at him with a smile, then walked over and put his hand on his shoulder as if intimately. I don't know when, a small device has appeared in his hands. He pressed the switch, and a high-frequency sound wave started to be emitted from the device. Before the Scarface could react, his brain was congested, and his entire body completely lost ability. "This is the only gift you can get." Obadiah pointed at the soundproof earplugs in his ears, shook the ultrasonic device in his hand, and showed a cruel smile. "Technology, this is your eternal weakness in this world." While talking, Obadiah turned off the device and took off the soundproof earplugs in his ears. "But don't worry, the effect of this thing can only last 15 minutes, this is just the slightest of your troubles." After speaking, Obadiah opened the curtain of the tent and walked out. Outside the tent, seeing that all 10 Rings guards had been subdued by the bodyguards he had brought, Obadiah didn't look surprised. Obviously, he had planned it a long time ago. "Bring me the iron armor inside and clean up the mess. It's time for us to go." As soon as his words fell, with the fire of a series of bullets and the fiery snakes rushing through the firearms, this abandoned railway hub fell into silence again, and I don't know how long it will take again. Someone came here. The 16th area will be established under the prototype of the arc reactor. The mission must be carried out in secret. We must gather our best engineers. I want you to help me make a prototype immediately. In addition, I watched Tony and Mark closely. Everything in the Stark group must fall into my hands. This time, I can't make a mistake. Quote. "So, what you mean is that the unidentified factor that put down the turmoil in the town of Gumila in the previous news is actually you. Wearing that steel battle suit alone, you single-handedly solved a company of terrorists." Quote. Pepper couldn't believe it and covered his surprised mouth with his hands. "This is too dangerous, Mr. Stark, you must stop this wayward behavior immediately. You still have Mark to take care of, and Stark. Tens of thousands of employees in the industry also rely on you for their lives. Think about it, when you came back last time, the battlesuit was full of bullet marks. If something happens to you, what should these people do?" "Calm down, Pepper, calm down. Don't be so excited, the bullet marks just look terrible, but in fact they didn't cause any critical damage to the battle suit. You also know that Mark and I have wisdom far beyond ordinary people. The safety and reliability of Mark III, which was developed by combining the wisdom of the two of us, is beyond doubt." Quote. Tony put his hands firmly on Pepper's shoulders, looked directly at her, and calmed down patiently. "I'm worried about you, do you know? You managed to escape from the hands of those villains. Why do you want to put yourself in danger? Maybe this is the growth I have gained from the kidnapping incident. It is precisely because I clearly understand the dangers I have to face, that is why I developed the Mark III to protect myself, isn't it? And as long as you support me behind my back, even if I'm in a dangerous situation, my heart can remain peaceful." Quote. At the most appropriate time, Tony finally uttered the golden sentences he carefully collected on the internet. Unsurprisingly, as soon as he said this, the situation turned around instantly. Pepper blushed and lowered his head without mentioning it anymore. Against Tony's risk. "Pepper, if you don't mind, I still need you to do me a favor. I want you to go to my office, hack into the mainframe computer, and find all the recent shipping lists." With that, Tony gave the same item, passed it to Pepper. "This is a cipher chip, you can easily hack in with it. The list may be in the main folder, or it is hidden in the drive, in which case you have to search for the smallest title. If I brought the list back, what would you do with it?" Pepper was a little worried that Tony would do something dangerous again. "Like last time, they are secretly trading, I have to stop them. I want to find those weapons and destroy them. Tony, you know that I am willing to do anything for you. But if you take care of it again, I can't help you." Pepper refused embarrassedly. "Okay, then this is your next task. It is my order from Tony Stark as the boss." Tony, a straight steel man, appeared again, breaking the good atmosphere that had been built up so hard before. "Really? Then I resign." Pepper also did not back down, throwing the cipher chip casually on the table. "You have been by my side all these years when I made the huge profits brought about by destruction, and now when I want to protect those people who are in danger because of me, you want to leave me. You will kill yourself like this, Tony. I don't want to get involved. Everyone in the world should have a goal. Tony Stark of the past has died in the cave in Afghanistan following the explosion, and Tony Stark, who was born in Nirvana, needs a new goal. I'm not crazy, Pepper. I just suddenly understood what I should do, and I knew it was the right thing to do. Pepper didn't reply, and silently picked up the crypto chip on the table. You are everything to me, you know. The Stark Group office building. Today Pepper changed his usual time habits and appeared in the company half an hour earlier. And from her nervous face, it can be seen that things are indeed a bit unusual. Before coming to Tony's office, she looked around and found that the others hadn't arrived yet, quickly opened the door and walked in, and then quickly closed the office door. After arriving at the destination, Pepper didn't waste a single bit of time, and hurriedly turned on Tony's main computer, connected the crypto chip and started searching for the required information. She followed Tony's instructions to search for information in the main folder, but found nothing after searching, and then she opened the computer's drive folder. There are many missile drawings and materials designed by Tony, but after a search, a drawing of a giant steel armor attracted her attention. This design is obviously similar to the battle suit she saw on Tony before. The concept is quite different in appearance. District 16. What the hell are you doing, Obadiah? Is it possible that Mark's previous guess was correct? Recalling that when Tony had just returned from an emergency, Mark once told her that the entire company knew that Tony was only traveling with her and Obadiah, so the traitor must be among them. And now it is clear that the answer has been Roar's desire to come out, and a video found next confirms Pepper's suspicion. In the video, Tony, who was tied tightly and blocked his ears, sat firmly in the C position, surrounded by a group of big men with rifles covered in turbans. The leader held a manuscript in his hand and spoke in English with a Middle Eastern accent. You didn't tell us that the person you want us to kill is the famous Tony Stark. As you see, Obadiah Stane, you will pay for your deception and lies. Tony Stark, the heads of people will just increase in price. Oh my God. Pepper didn't expect this to be true, and Tony's most beloved uncle secretly wanted to put him to death. Seeing this, she hurriedly transferred 2 important files to the crypto chip, and was about to take it back to tell Tony the truth. At this moment, the door of the office was opened, and it was Obadiah Stane who came by. Oh, Miss Pepper, I didn't expect you to be here before work hours. It surprised me. I know you are embarrassed by Pepper now. Obadiah took a wine glass and came to Tony's office next to the wine cabinet. At the moment, looking at the slightly unnatural look on Pepper's face, Obadiah could already guess what she was here for so early in the morning. But before he really confirmed that his disguise was completely seen through, Obadiah still maintained his hypocritical face, maintaining his perennial gentleman demeanor in every move. But what he didn't know was that under his decent manners, the greedy and ferocious eyes that could not be covered had completely betrayed his heart. Pepper adjusted his state, showing a professional smile, while observing the progress of the download of the information from the corner of his eye. Tony always has good things, doesn't he? At this time, Obadiah took a bottle of Tony's fine wine from the wine cabinet and poured a glass for himself. Pepper seized this opportunity and took the other's eyes away. Immediately picked up the newspaper on the computer desk to cover the cipher chip on the host, and then opened the screensaver to hide the transmission screen on the desktop. When Obadiah was full of wine and came to the desk, all he saw was Pepper, who had not acted on the computer screensaver and could only continue his disguise. When Tony comes home, you don't know how happy I am, as if I brought him back to life. But now I realize that Tony never really came back, did he? He left part of himself in that cave, which made me sad. Quote. Pepper looked nervously at Obadiah, who was sitting in front of him, close at hand. Ah, he is indeed a very complicated person. As if feeling his state was too tense, Pepper paused and continued with a stiff smile. He has gone through a lot of thrills, but I believe he will get better. Obadiah took a sip of the wine and gave Pepper a meaningful look. You are such a rare woman. Tony doesn't know how lucky he is. Thank you for your compliment, but I have to go. Pepper stood up, picked up the newspaper he was staying in, and took the cipher chip back in his hand. After simply bidding farewell to Obadiah, he looked at the other party. He left the office with his eyes. Turning the corner, Pepper looked at the cipher chip in his hand in a place where Obadiah could not see. He sighed with relief, and quickly speeded up and walked outside the company. On the other side, after seeing Pepper's figure disappear, Obadiah also immediately turned back to the computer and unlocked the screensaver. When he saw the prompt of data download completed on the desktop, he finally confirmed that his secret had been discovered by Pepper. He leaned on the seat angrily, but his eyes became more determined and fierce. Now that the disguise has been exposed, then he can't be blamed for his cruelty. Miss Potts, I'm afraid we have an appointment. Did you forget our appointment? Just as Pepper hurried down to the lobby of the office building, it attracted the attention of Phil Coulson, who attended the meeting as scheduled. Thinking of Phil Coulson's identity as an agent, Pepper, who realized that he was already in danger at the moment, also went along. No, I didn't forget, you can come with me now. This meeting is guaranteed to be unforgettable for you. On the second floor of the lobby, Obadiah, who was standing in the corridor, could only watch Pepper leave and leave. In desperation, he turned and headed to the 16th area that he secretly established under the arc reactor prototype exhibition area. In the 16th area, a group of scientists gathered by Obadiah were busy working. Seeing him directly and aggressively pushing the door in, the person in charge of the project hurriedly stopped working and greeted him. Mr. Stan, the task you asked us to do seems to be a bit difficult. After research, we agreed that there is no technology that can function for this armor. It doesn't exist. Obadiah tightly hugged the person in charge with his right arm, pointed to the prototype of the arc reactor in front of them and said excitedly, "Look, this one in front of you is technology. All I want you to do is to shrink him a bit." "Yes, sir, we wanted to do this, but unfortunately it is impossible." At the moment he no longer pretends to be his Obadiah, and there is no longer the gentleness of the past. He picked up the collar of this person in charge and shouted angrily, "Tony Stark used a pair of broken copper in a cave. Bad iron can be made. Sorry, but we are not Tony Stark. The kid Mark hasn't come back yet. Tony, who got Pepper's permission last night, stayed at her house." After a night of excitement, he finally found out that the other party didn't mean that. He had no choice but to return. After Pepper went out, he drove slowly back to his own Port Marbury. In the villa. JARVIS, hasn't Mark come back all night? Quote. Without a response from JARVIS, Tony was a little confused and asked again, JARVIS. Strange, is it down? Still no response. Tony planned to check the JARVIS program. At this time, the phone at home rang and saw that it was Pepper's call, and he answered directly, "Hey, Pepper." Before he finished speaking, Tony felt that his brain had lost contact with his body, and he lay down on the sofa uncontrollably. Deep roar inhale, relax, relax. A familiar voice rang behind him, but a shuddering chill was exuded in the gentle tone. You remember this stuff, don't you? The one who attacked Tony was Obadiah, who hurriedly rushed from the 16th district. After confirming that his men could not replicate the miniature arc reactor, he decided to carry out a crazy plan, that is, from its owner. Take it away. After using the same method as the boss of 10 Rings to make Tony lose his ability, he proudly showed Tony this little prop that helped him get everything. It's a shame that the government didn't approve its mass production. I still remember the excited expression when the 6-year-old little Mark took this small invention of his own and pranked us. Short-term paralysis is very useful. The paint he painted on my face at that time took me a long time to wash it off. Did you know, Tony? When I offered a reward for killing you, I worried that I would lose you, the old hen who laid the golden eggs. Quote. Tony, who was temporarily paralyzed on the sofa, opened his eyes in shock when he heard these words, and looked at the uncle he once loved the most. However, he saw that Obadiah was just a cold and merciless tool in his hand, stretching his claws on the arc reactor in front of his chest. Tony. After receiving a call from Pepper for help, Colonel Rohr, who came to Tony's house to check the situation, called Tony's name loudly. When he saw that the living room had become a pool, the big white lying on the ground made him even more sure. The situation is dangerous. Sir, the old master moved to the underground garage. After being reminded by Dubai, Rod hurried down the stairs to the garage, and Tony Stark fell on the ground in his eyes. Tony, are you okay? Rod hurried forward to check the situation. I'm okay, you go to protect Pepper, I implicated her in. Tony's body was still a little weak, and he could only reluctantly grab Rod's arm and said to him solemnly. Don't worry, she's okay. Pepper is now with 5 agents, ready to go to the company to arrest Obadiah. Tony's expression was ugly for a moment. 5 people are not enough, I hope Nini can hold on for a while. After speaking, he stood up forcibly with Rhodes' support. Pepper is not doing well now, and he must come forward. This is really the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life. Aside, Lord couldn't help but envy as Tony watched Tony's dressing up for Mark III. Not bad, right, it's about to start. Tony finished dressing, stepped off the dressing table, and closed the helmet mask. Is there anything else I can help? Rod asked. Leave the sky unimpeded. After that, Tony didn't even leave the garage passage, and rushed out of the ceiling hole he smashed in the previous experiment with Mark II. It's so cool. Flight member Rod's eyes were gleaming, and he exclaimed with admiration. On the other side, Mark, who was devoting himself to the development of the building control system in the laboratory of his new company's office building, suddenly made a rapid alarm sound from his mobile phone in his pocket. Mark's attention was drawn from the research by the alarm bell, and he took out his phone and saw the emergency alert on the screen. Mark knew that Obadiah must have acted on his father. Tony didn't know that the life-saving no one that Mark gave him last time, in addition to really providing him with a life-saving opportunity at a critical moment, the most important thing is that Mark can detect the emergencies encountered by Tony at any time, and help it deal with the crisis. Like this time, the arc reactor was forcibly dismantled by Obadiah, cutting off its power supply to the electromagnet. Baoming No One immediately issued a record of the occurrence of the abnormal situation and sent an alarm signal to Mark. After receiving the alarm, Mark hurriedly saved half of his work on the computer, ready to rush back to help, and then found embarrassingly that he had no driver's license and no car, and even Dabai was not by his side, so there was no way to rush home in time. Inside, Mark quickly took out the phone and called Magneto. Magneto, quickly change the monitoring accessories and help me go out and check my father's situation. The Mark command was issued. Magneto acted immediately in the dormant box in the room, and the 2 magnetic shaft components on the top of the head fell off. The accessories in the box were ejected from the storage box and were drawn by magnetic force. The magnetic shaft accessories that carried the surveillance camera were directly attached, connected to Magneto's head. After the assembly is complete, Magneto's sleep box will automatically open. It turned over, out of the box, and sneaked into the living room quietly. On Mark's side, after Magneto came to the living room, a clear picture appeared on the phone screen. In the picture, Obadiah triumphantly left the villa with the arc reactor, while Tony collapsed on the sofa without moving. Oops, I shouldn't have used that thing to prank Obadiah in the first place. Seeing Tony's state, Mark recognized at a glance that this was a masterpiece of his own invention. You have to contact Uncle Rod for help. Magneto's magnetic axis servo system can't handle heavy objects like the reactor at all. Just when Mark made the decision to make a call, Dabai appeared by Tony's side in time, which made Mark relieved. Sure enough, to reproduce Dabai is the most wise decision I made, but Obadiah, you are a bad old man, and since you refuse to be an honest person, then I will send you comfortably to heaven. Mark closed the monitoring screen sent by Magneto and opened a pink interface. There is only a map interface and a red anchor point, and the location of this point at the moment is displayed near Stark Industry. It seems that Sister Pepper is still taking Phil Coulson to arrest the nasty old man Obadiah. Fortunately, she has not forgotten to take Nini with her. Now let's see how I can clean up your nasty old man. The interface Mark called up is actually the positioning interface he gave to Pepper's personal all-around assistant Nini, and the reason why he wanted to add such a positioning system to Nini is definitely to transmit special parts. The battle suit I customized for Nini, but with more effort than Dabai. Enjoy, Obadiah. With that said, Mark clicked the confirm button on the phone screen. At the same time, outside the Stark Villa in Port Marbury, a lawn suddenly rose, revealing a deep hole underneath. Boom! Suddenly the flames lighted up, and a black shadow rushed into the sky in the night, leaving only a long tail flame, and it was heading in the direction of Stark Industry. Stark Industries, Pepper, under the protection of Phil Coulson and 4 other SHIELD agents, has infiltrated the 16th district secretly established in Obadiah. After passing through a dark area to the center, a mighty set of steel armor appeared in front of several people. It seems that you were right, he made a set of armor. Phil Coulson said. I thought it would be a little bigger. Pepper felt that this armor was different from what she had copied today. They didn't know that the armor in front of them was nothing but Mark I, which Obadiah used as a prototype, and the real Iron Overlord, boom, suddenly appeared behind them. Ah! Pepper was scared by the huge amounts of Iron Overlord size and ferocious appearance. The pink suitcase in her hand received this signal, and the lights flickered immediately, and Nini was quickly released. Nini felt that the owner was in danger, and switched mode bodyguard. But fortunately you survived the disaster. You laid the last golden egg for me. Obadiah did not show any mercy, so he took out the arc reactor from Tony's chest and unplugged the wire that powers the electromagnet. Do you really think you have come up with an idea? That idea belongs to you. Obadiah did not leave immediately after getting what he wanted, but continued to mock Tony. Yours, Dad, he helped us build the atomic bomb. If he were as selfish as you, what would the world be like today? Take a look, this thing is perfect, this is your 9th symphony, Tony. It will be your relic, and a new generation of weapons with him as the energy core will set the world out of chaos anyway. I really hope you can see my armored prototype. He is not as conservative as yours. And it's too bad for you to involve Pepper. Originally, I only wanted to get rid of you and Mark. You know, Mark is like a young version of you. He is so capable that I don't dare to leave him any chance of revenge. I still don't understand that the villain died of a lot of words. After a long speech, Obadiah, who has the truth in all universes, left Tony's villa with the arc reactor he dreamed of, and did not make any money for Tony. The last blow to death. After Obadiah left, Tony's limited physical paralysis has not faded. In addition, the shrapnel on his chest has lost the adsorbent of the electromagnet, and his body at the moment has become very weak. Exercising the strength of feeding, Tony moved his body reluctantly, but the effect was not obvious. Calculating the time in his mind, he had counted from the time he received Obadiah. After the other party's long speech, the effect of the body numbness should be about to end. Tony decided to wait a while, and went to the garage after resuming ability. The old core sent by Pepper was used to temporarily hold it. But Tony was overjoyed that before he started this almost impossible plan, a red figure fell from the sky. Master, what's the matter with you? Your condition is very bad. I will scan you soon. After the scan, your cerebellum was stimulated by ultrasound, which made your body temporarily paralyzed, the chest reactor disappeared, and the remaining shrapnel in the chest lost its restraint. Your current situation is very dangerous. Dubai will temporarily use its own energy to power your electromagnet. This red figure has completed the resettlement work of the refugees in the small town of Gumila and returned smoothly. Dubai quickly removed the battle armor of his combat mode and restored his own health assistant form. Then, regardless of his own condition, he picked up the fruit knife on the table and made a small hole in his stomach, which would provide energy for his own power. The mini arc reactor was taken out. Dubai is about to switch to the backup energy graphene battery, about to shut down and restart. Please wait for 3 seconds. After 3 seconds, the restarted Dubai cut off the power connector of the mini arc reactor and connected it to Tony's electromagnet. However, due to the fact that Dubai's reactor is more compact and has a different shape, it cannot be stably inserted into Tony's chest. With the completion of this series of movements, Dubai's body also completely lost the support of the air, and collapsed in front of Tony. And Tony, who got the Dubai reaction furnace, his body improved a little, and he was barely able to say a few words. Dubai, can you get in touch with Mark? Tell him that he must stay in the laboratory. No matter who goes to him, he don't open the door. Don't worry, the old master, I've already sent the news. And all the clothes of the little master have been updated according to the standard of the magic suit, and a new chip automatic life protection 3000 has been added. Every danger is safe to escape. Tony blinked, temporarily letting go of Mark's side. How about Pepper's side? I have already communicated with Nini, and Miss Pepper will not have trouble with it by my side. Now that all the threats made by Obadiah had failed, Tony also turned his attention to himself. The mini reactor Dubai used for himself is definitely not usable. It is too inconvenient to move. It is better to replace it with the original reactor made in Afghanistan in the garage. But now that Dubai has lost his ability, it is impossible to help. He can only rely on himself. Tony hasn't recovered to the point where he can stand up. and can only move forward through the slow movement of his body like a caterpillar. Slowly, finally squeezed into the elevator and came to the basement. Tony, who can only act on the ground, looked at the first-generation reactor placed high above the work surface, and indeed he couldn't reach it anyway. Just when Tony decided to give up and waited for his body to regain his mobility, the clumsy boy who had always been clumsy, handed the box containing the original reactor to Tony's hand. "Good boy. It seems that I have to learn to be nostalgic from today." Tony looked happy, and finally slammed the reactor against the ground and took out the reactor. While replacing the energy core for himself, Tony couldn't help but think of a conversation he had with Mark. 9 years ago, Tony pointed to a robotic arm that had been invented by him for a few months and cursed, "This thing is really clumsy. It's simply my worst piece of work. But I think it will be your greatest work," the young Mark said, looking at Tony, who lost his temper. Tony waved his hand impatiently. "What do you know, kid? Because it has personality and emotions, I think it can already be called a silicon-based life. Although a little clumsy and unable to complete your orders, he has made some progress in the past few months, but you are too impatient to find out. That's it. It's like a child right now, just born ignorant, but when you teach it patiently and let it grow slowly, one day it will show you its incredibles." Tony thought for a while, but finally didn't turn this robotic arm into a bunch of parts. "Let's listen to you. Since it's so clumsy, I'll call it a little dumb from now on." Thinking of this, Tony smiled. It seems that another thing was said by Mark. "You will be my greatest work, Shaoban. Kill him." Seeing the Iron Lord, who suddenly launched an attack, the well-trained SHIELD agents quickly took out their pistols and shot them. However, in the face of the Iron Overlord in steel armor, these bullets hitting the body are just like annoying flies, and they can't harm him at all. Before a few agents analyzed the next countermeasures, Iron Overlord swept them all and solved them all. Pepper, who was on the side, was shocked by such a hot scene. Seeing the iron fist of the Iron Overlord was about to hit her head-on, Nini, who was alert by her side, immediately hugged her master by a princess. The super brake was operating at full capacity, and the two quickly escaped from the attack range of the Iron Overlord. However, Iron Bawang was limited by huge amounts of body size, and could not move flexibly in the narrow environment of District 16. He could only watch Pepper being rescued. Pepper, who escaped from the office building with Nini's help, immediately dialed Tony's phone and wanted to report the situation to him. Fortunately, her phone was connected this time. "Tony, how are you? Opadriata is crazy. He made a set of huge amounts of armor." "I know, Pepper, calm down now, get out of there, now." But Tony couldn't wait for Pepper's reply. There was only a sound of huge amounts of on the phone, and Obadiah's grim voice, "Where do you want to escape? JARVIS, how long can the chest component support?" "Sir, the power is still 48%, and the volume is still declining. This chest component is not designed for long flights. Remind me anytime. You are no longer useful." The Iron Overlord, who broke through the ground from the 16th area and came to Pepper, had already pointed the huge amounts of machine gun muzzle on Pepper at this moment. But before he fired, a flash of fire flashed, and a black figure that followed directly hit the Iron Overlord arm, causing him to lose his balance. After hitting the Iron Overlord, the black shadow dispersed directly, turning into armor parts one by one to complete the integration with Nini, who was in front of Pepper. That's right, what arrived in the emergency is exactly Mark left behind, Nini's battle armor. The battle armor uses the same graphene titanium composite material as Dubai, and the whole body presents a pink and white girlish color scheme. Unlike Dubai's battle armor, which is only equipped with the flight module, there is no substantial killing weapon. Nini's battle armor is equipped with the mustard-free plasma lightsaber from the Power Marine Corps, combined with the martial arts skills in the Nini combat chip, can be said to be the icing on the cake. The heavily armed Nini did not put the solution to the threat in front of her first, but immediately picked up her master Pepper, started the thruster and flew away from this dangerous place. In the bodyguard mode, Nini puts the owner's safety first, so it is not a situation where it is impossible to escape safely. Fighting will not be Nini's first choice. As soon as Nini left the scene with Pepper, Tony drove Mark III to the Iron Overlord, hit the energy to the chest. As soon as they met, Tony gave Obadiah a meeting ceremony, and the energy cannon on his chest hit the bullseye. The Iron Overlord was affected by the attack and stepped back. However, the design of Tibawang is different from Tony's Mark series. It pursues beauty and streamlined design. The heavy outer armor and huge amounts of transmission structure give it a stronger defense and attack power than the Mark series. The full blow from Tony did not cause too much damage to the Iron Overlord, but instead aroused the ferocity of Obadiah. After stabilizing his balance a little, Iron Overlord began to counterattack Tony. Obadiah controlled the body to turn on the thrusters on the soles of his feet, and quickly narrowed the distance with Tony, followed by an iron fist, which hit Tony's breastplate heavily. Bang! The power of Mark III couldn't stop this powerful attack, and Tony was knocked to the ground directly. The Iron Overlord, who had gone violently, was not satisfied with this. It grabbed Tony, who had fallen on the ground and had not recovered, and pressed it to the ground again after a heavy fall. For 30 years, I will hold up a sky for you. I built this company from scratch, nothing can stop me, especially you. With that said, the weapon bay at the back of the Iron Overlord opened, and an armor-piercing projectile was aimed at Tony and fired directly. Boom! The huge amounts of fireball flooded Tony in an instant, but fortunately, Mark III not only used gold titanium alloy as the main material of the battle suit, but also covered the surface with a layer of graphene film invented by Mark, making the armor of this battle suit even though flimsy, but its defensive ability is indeed full. Tony accepted the impact of the explosion and flew into the air, wanting to take advantage of the geographical advantage. But to his surprise, the Iron Overlord heavy body was even loaded with a flight device. Sir, the opponent's body seems to have flight ability. That's right, JARVIS, take me to maximum height. Sir, you currently have only 15% of the power left, flying to that height will. Tony interrupted JARVIS's reminder, I will count, do as I say. As Tony's battle suit continued to climb higher, Iron Overlord perseveringly followed him up. When Tony's battle armor was 7% motivated, Iron Overlord finally caught up with Tony and grabbed it into his own hands. You have a good idea, Tony. But my battle armor is better than yours in every aspect. More advanced. Really, did you solve the problem of icing in the high altitude of the battle suit? Ice problem. Obadiah was a little confused, but before he could react, Iron Overlord had already lost his power completely because of the icing problem because of the control system failure. Think about how to solve it. Dang, Tony hit the Iron Overlord head with a punch, freed from its restraint, and the uncontrollable Iron Overlord could only accelerate to the ground under the action of gravity. But Tony didn't feel proud for too long. Sir, there is still 2% of the power left. Use the graphene battery backup energy. The Mark III, which activated the backup energy, could no longer stay in the air steadily, and began a phased downward rapid descent. Fortunately, JARVIS made strict calculations to ensure that Tony had enough energy to land safely. Pepper, Tony, my God, are you okay? I'm ready to run out of motivation. When I take off this thing, I will come to you immediately. Bang, nice plan. It's a pity that I have better luck. The Iron Overlord, who Tony thought had been resolved, appeared behind him again, and held him tightly with both hands. Tony, how are you? Pepper asked nervously when he heard something wrong on the phone. However, Tony is now in the hands of Iron Overlord, and has no time to respond to her concerns. Nini, go over and help Tony. There is no way, Pepper can only ask Nini for help now. Received, Master. Please stay here for the time being and don't leave. Nini will return as soon as she goes. Whoosh! Nini accelerated the thruster behind her, and went straight to the position of Iron Overlord and Tony. On the other side, Tony, who finally got out of the control of the Iron Overlord, hid himself. Pepper, we can only overload the reactor in the exhibition area and blow up the roof to solve Obadiah and his armor. Tony, I have asked Nini to help you. It's useless, it's impossible to be small, solve, Obadiah. What's wrong with you, Tony? How do you chuckle? Pepper, thank you for your help. I take back what I said before. The violent factor in Mark's bones really surprised me. The scene that made Tony's words unsatisfactory was nothing but Nini, who had been ordered by Pepper to come to help. Nini was not crushed unilaterally by the Iron Overlord as Tony had imagined, nor was it that Nini used her agile movement to contain the Iron Overlord attack power. After Nini descended from the sky, she shot two plasma lightsabers directly with her arms. Before the Iron Overlord could react, she smashed them by means of subtle moves. Looking at Obadiah, who was dead and couldn't die anymore, Tony only felt a chill rushing down the tailbone towards the Sky Spirit cover, making his whole person excited. This kid, Mark, how do you feel that he has invented more and more things? It's dangerous, I really dare not provoke him in the future. The war came to an abrupt end, and even Obadiah, as the big villain, failed to set his own death flag, and received a lunchbox under the attack of Nini's sharp knife. I knew I should have Mark get a personal assistant like this. JARVIS, help me contact Rod. Tony, how is your side? As soon as the call was connected, Rod hurriedly asked about the situation on Tony's side. There is a mess that needs your help. You know it's no good if you ask me. I will help you clean up the mess. How about letting me wear your battlesuit for a day? Sorry, they are tailor-made. Give me some time. I will remodel the Mark II and give it to you. Make a deal. At the familiar press conference, Colonel Rod, dressed in military uniform, was speaking on the stage. We have all received an official statement regarding the Stark Industrial incident last night. There are uncertain reports that a robot prototype has failed and caused serious damage to the buildings and roads surrounding Stark Industrial. Fortunately, a private security guard from Tony Stark. Backstage at the press conference, Pepper was applying makeup to Tony, who was about to speak, to cover up the scars he left on his face last night. Tony listened to Rod's speech live on TV while distracted and looked at the newspaper. Iron Man is a memorable name and looks cool. But technically it's not accurate because my battle suit uses it's made of gold titanium alloy with a graphene film attached to the surface. But the name is very attractive anyway. Mark next to Tony rolled his eyes disdainfully when he heard Tony's words. If I hadn't activated Nini's combat accessories to save you, you would have to blow up the prototype of the arc reactor that Grandpa left behind. I'm so embarrassed to be here. I am proud of the news in the newspaper. Tony was anxious when he heard Mark's revelation. I haven't criticized you, this brat. When did you become so violent? It's not a combat mod or a dominator recently. Why don't you discuss it with me? Huh, just like you Shalbai who doesn't even understand graphene, do I need to discuss it with you? Mark began to use his own advantage of the traverser to respond to Tony. You brat, it's not my credit that your robot can use the miniaturized arc reactor. That was invented by Grandpa first, you just picked up a big bargain. You two, please stop. Phil Coulson, who had just entered the door, found that the two men seemed to be immortal, and quickly stopped the two of them from arguing. Mr. Stark, this is your alibi. Phil Coulson handed a note to Tony. You were on the yacht and we prepared the customs documents. You were on Avalon Island all night. There were testimonies from 50 guests. I thought we would say it was only me and Pepper together, alone on that island. Pepper, who was concentrating on touching up Tony's makeup, took off the band-aid on Tony's face a little bit, and gave him a warning. And me, I should be on the island too. Mark interjected to join in the fun. Don't make trouble, there is something about the children at the adult gathering. By the way, there is no mention of Obadiah in this. Phil Coulson responded calmly. We have prepared the relevant documents. He was on vacation at the time, but unfortunately the small plane he was flying had an accident on the road. You know, this kind of small plane is particularly prone to accidents. You just need to speak according to the official statement, Mr. Stark, so you will be fine soon. You still have 90 seconds to prepare. After that, Phil Coulson turned and walked out. Wait, Agent Phil Coulson. Pepper hurriedly stopped Phil Coulson from behind. I want to thank you for your help. This is our job, and we will contact you. Phil Coulson responded with a smile. From the National Strategy, just call S.H.I.E.L.D. Our director accepted Mark Stark's proposal. Hey, don't call me kid, I'm 14 years old. Mark yelled in protest. Okay Mark, you go to the seat outside first, we are ready to go on stage. Tony patted Mark on the ass and drove him out. Mark instantly realizes, knowing that Tony is creating a solitary space with Pepper, the honest root Phil Coulson left the room behind, so he doesn't want to be a light bulb. If I were Iron Man, my girlfriend would know my true identity, then she would be miserable. She would worry about my death all the time, but be proud of me. She would be very contradictory, but it would make her be fascinated by me even more. So, Pepper, have you ever remembered that night? Which night? You know. Did you mean that we danced and then went upstairs, and then you went downstairs to get me a drink, and then you left me alone and left with Mark? Did you mean that night? Tony wanted to test the progress of the relationship with Pepper, but he didn't expect to make the atmosphere of the scene extremely embarrassing. Tony could only squeeze out an embarrassing smile and was silent. I know. Is there anything else, Mr. Stark? No, it's okay, Miss Potts. Let's go out. I seem to hear Rod calling my name. With a stiff smile, Tony turned and quickly escaped from this embarrassing place, leaving only to watch him fall away. The escaped Pepper finally couldn't hold back his pretended angry expression and showed a charming smile. Now let's ask Mr. Tony Stark to come on stage to make a statement, but he won't answer any questions, thank you. After speaking, Colonel Rod walked to the side of the stage and made room for Tony. Tony stood on the stage, looked at the audience and reporters below, then at Pepper, Mark, and Rod on both sides of the stage, and then said, "It's been a while since I saw you all this time. Let's just read it. Some people have speculated that I was involved in the incident that happened on the highway and on the roof." Just as Tony started to read the manuscript in his hand, the reporters in the audience were unwilling to let him go like this. "Sorry, Mr. Stark, you really expect us to believe that a bodyguard wearing a battle suit happened to show up, although your bodyguard. I know the situation is confusing, Harpy's figure is a bit bloated. But I believe he can wear a steel battle suit if he is willing to throw off dozens of caddies like John Firu. It's one thing to question official rhetoric, but your crazy accusation or suggestion that I am a superhero is another." Quote. Tony's speech here without silver 300 tails made the reporters on the scene smile excitedly. They knew that big news was coming. "Mr. Stark, I didn't say you were a superhero. Really, that's good." Tony started talking nonsense, a little embarrassed. "Because it's not marginal and whimsical, I'm obviously not a hero. I have a lot of personality flaws, I have made so many mistakes, and I am very public." According to the manuscript, hearing Tony start to play freely, Lord next to him gritted his teeth and reminded him in a low voice. Okay, the truth is, halfway through, Tony paused suddenly and gave a mysterious smile, "I am Iron Man." Tony confessed his identity as a superhero, which caused the reporters' flashes to flash wildly. They didn't care about how much film they consumed or how much memory they used, their fingers seemed to cramp, and they madly pressed the camera shutter for tomorrow. Newspaper's front page headline cover material. "It's so cool, Daddy. You are now the first superhero to be publicly identified since World War II." Mark rushed to the stage after Tony's speech. "Okay, don't add fuel to the fire." Pepper took Mark aside. "Did you not see that Mr. Rod and Mr. Phil Coulson are all black? Now their previous preparations are all in vain. Now you have to work overtime to wipe your father's ass. Hey, I'm a bit excited to witness the birth of Iron Man. Don't worry, I will save him face outside, and I will definitely teach him well when I go home. I can't trouble others like this in the future." Pissed, looking at Mark's serious expression, Pepper couldn't help but laughed out. "You are already very good if you don't trouble others, and I want to teach your father." "Yes, come on. You asked me to help you buy the shares of Stark Industries. The position is now full. Do you want to follow up?" No need. Mark shook his head quickly. Now that the old man has announced his Iron Man identity, even the stocks of Stark Industries will definitely follow the skyrocket. I don't have that much money to throw into it. Sister Poe, the shares you helped me get from the stock market and some small shareholders are enough to add up. With these shares, I can help my father obtain more than 50% of the voting rights. Moreover, my company has recently started to develop its business, and my funds have to be invested in it. How about Sister Pepper, do you want to get rid of Tony and go to work in my company? I promise that I will not always make some embarrassing requests like him, and I will not play bad temper with you. The salary will be flipped according to your current standards, and in the future, all the listed products of the company will be given a private order version for you." Quote. "Thank you for being so worthy of me, Mark. But I still can't work in your company. Tony is such a big man. I don't know if you are a child to make me feel relieved. I don't know if I can last for a few days without me. But rest assured, I personally selected your company employees and managers for you. In terms of job ability and character, they are all the best choices. They are better than me." Quote. HMPH, I'm not worried about their job ability, the big deal is that I work alone, there is no productivity that cannot be replaced by the power of technology. I just think that sister, you stayed and worked by Tony's side is too wrong. Suddenly, a brilliant idea popped up in Mark's brain. Sister Pepper, come here a little bit, I have a whisper. What? Pepper listened. How did you say that we punish Tony once? You pretend to resign and come to work with me, so that he can experience life without you by his side, so that he can understand your importance. This is not so good, if he really approves, Pepper said worriedly. Impossible, you two like each other. Even I can tell. If you don't give him a bit of hardship, a playboy like him will not take the initiative to confess. And even if he really approves your resignation, then it's okay to really slip to my company and work. Mark said, patting his chest. Then you're an empty glove white wolf, and you got a big deal. Pepper was dismantled by Mark and thought carefully, pretending to be angry. Then if you don't refuse, I will assume that you agree to my plan. Mark entered Tony's cheeky true story, and then asked. Pepper did not reject Mark's proposal, and nodded in tacit agreement. On the speaking stage, Tony, who was greeted by the media flocking for interviews and shootings, did not know what kind of pit his cheating son had dug him. How can you say this, Mark? Why did Pepper suddenly offer to resign? I think we have been doing pretty well recently. On the way home, Tony, who didn't know that he was being used by Mark and Pepper to work together, kept driving while sending messages to Mark, who was in the co-pilot, with a dazed expression on his face. Mark suppressed a smile, and said solemnly, drive attentively, father. Sister Pepper's resignation is nothing but two reasons. One is that the job is not going well and the boss is too disgusting, so he fired the boss in anger to seek liberation. Impossible, Tony interrupted quickly, how could anyone hate me with such a handsome and easygoing boss? And I. Tony obviously wanted to find a few more reasons to refute Mark's point of view, but after a few rounds of thought, he did not think of a piece of evidence that could prove that he is a good boss, and the atmosphere in the car suddenly fell into silence. Mark didn't want Tony to hit the bottom. He didn't want this prank to end early, so he comforted Tony, okay, just treat you as a good boss. Sister Pepper did not resign because of this. It should be the second reason is that I found a company with better salary, so I decided to quit. But when I asked her to stay today, I said that I could give her money, but she still didn't promise to stay. Tony said with a bit of frustration. Then I think it's probably the third reason for the exception. At the moment, Mark, who has been tempting Tony into the pit, finally released the trap he carefully prepared. There are exceptions. What are you telling me? When Tony heard this, he stopped driving and stopped on the side of the road, staring straight at Mark, asking for answers. Isn't that why you want to have an office romance? You have been picking a cute guy like this, without making promises, and not opening it to the outside world, making people look like your mistress in an underground affair. Isn't this innocent? And if she likes you and you like her, then forget it. The problem now is that you have never made a clear statement. The girls have lost patience and don't want to be too embarrassed at work in the future, so they have to resign. Quote. Is that so? Tony muttered, his eyes lost. That's it, you can't go wrong. Mark plans to succeed, and hurriedly handed over an affirmative answer. Then what should I do next? I don't want Pepper to leave me. The authorities or fans and bystanders are clear, you have to help me, Mark. Tony fell completely into the trap under Mark's cloth, and he didn't even notice Mark behind the scenes. Black Hand asked. Mark definitely won't refuse Tony's request. Since Tony has sent to his door to be his marionette, how could Mark miss this opportunity? First of all, you have to give Sister Pepper a time to think calmly, so you tell her to give her a few days off, take a good rest, and think about whether she wants to resign by the way. In case she has figured it out herself, then the next thing will be easy. In fact, the first step is to give Pepper and Mark time to discuss plans and discuss how Tony should be made next. Next, you can't just take a holiday for Sister Pepper, and temporarily stabilize the situation and then take it lightly. At this time, you have to show your care for her and let him feel the love in your heart. That's the way to change her mind. In this second step, Mark doesn't have any tricky Tony thoughts. After all, the purpose of his action this time is to make Tony anxious and let him know that if he doesn't seize the opportunity, a good match like Sister Pepper's will run away. So we need to create opportunities for the two of them to get along and let them understand each other's feelings, which requires Tony to take the initiative. Then it's the last step. Mark stopped at the key point, did not speak, and wanted to sell it off. What is it? Tony also put on a gesture of asking for advice very cooperatively. His big watery eyes kept blinking, just like an elementary school student in class. Seeing Tony's appearance, Mark, whose vanity is satisfied, continued, the last step is definitely to show your heart. As long as Sister Pepper agrees to be your girlfriend, even if she really quits, it's not a monk. Can't you run to the temple? Yeah, Tony slapped his thigh suddenly, showing a look of sudden realization, but soon he became depressed again with his face-changing expression. If I had the confidence and courage to confess, then there will be things like today. You're a bullshit, it's really hopeless. Mark really didn't expect that Tony Stark, a nationally famous playboy, who has slept with countless beauties, would be so useless in the face of true love. It seems that we can only let the flow go, and hope that things will develop like a movie plot. Mark thought silently in his heart. Mark was silent all the way because he disliked Tony's cowardly behavior. Tony was too embarrassed to talk to Mark, and the two of them returned home speechless all the way. Jarvis, good evening. As always, Mark made a move with Jarvis when he got home. Roar. Welcome home, gentlemen. I am Iron Man. Do you think you are the only superhero in this world, Mr. Stark? You have become part of the larger universe, you just don't know it yet. In the dark corner of the living room, a bald black man with a blindfold on his left eye suddenly appeared in front of Stark and his son. During the hesitation period, the racial ability was so strong that it blended with the dark environment of the living room, so that after Tony and Mark returned home, they could not find his existence. Who are you? Seeing that this strange man could break through the security system he set up and break into his home, Tony immediately guarded Mark behind him and asked vigilantly. I'm, bang. Before the strange man could finish speaking, he suddenly fainted to the ground, leaving Tony, who had already tense nerves, froze in place. It was the movement of Mark coming out from behind him that made him come back to his senses. But watching Mark rushing over and preparing to tie someone, Tony knew that decedent's handwriting could not be wrong. Mark alone helped the strange man onto a chair, and then removed the suspenders on his overalls. I saw him put a bundle on the person, and then press the button on the belt, and the whole belt was automatically tightened, making the person strong. What's the matter? Explain. Tony stared at Mark as if he was lenient and resisting strict. Mark raised his hand and shook his watch. Hey, this is the accessory that I invented to match the magic suit anesthesia watch. As he said, Mark pressed the B button of the watch, and clicked, the watch mirror flicked. This is for aiming. I have built-in anesthesia needle and ejection device in the dial, and there is no false shot within 10 meters. This big black man fell into a coma after being hit by my anesthesia needle. The trouser pocket is a stretchable belt made of graphene material, which can be stretched and changed between 0.1 meters and 100 meters, which is very convenient. Quote, how do you feel that you are doing more safe work than me? Looking at his son's high-tech equipment all over his body, Tony silently expressed sympathy for the black man who had run into a private house and wanted to do something wrong. You are really looking for the wrong person. If the one-eyed bald head in a coma at the moment knew Tony's thoughts, he would definitely be wrong. In a daze, Nick Fury felt a strong light shining on his face, but with his years of experience as the king of agents, he did not immediately open his eyes to observe the surroundings, but continued to pretend to be in a coma. It looks like, secretly collecting intelligence information around. Feeling the sensation of being tightly bound on his body, Fury knew that he was tied up. The rope was very strong. He tried his best and could not loosen half of it. The smell of cheeseburger was floating in the air, which tied him. People should be dining not far away. You can hear the sound of the waves coming from afar, and you should be in a building by the sea now. Speaking of why I was tied up by others. How could he be the king of agents, the director of the National Land Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau? How could he be caught in an ambush by the enemy? By the way, I seem to have sneaked into Tony Stark's villa in Port Marbury today, trying to pretend to be coerced. It's because I talked to him about a big plan that Iron Man and myself had planned for a long time, but now it's the situation. It seems to be off the track. Thinking of this, Fury also guessed his current situation. He was not ambushed and kidnapped by the enemy, but was hit by Stark's mechanism and was fainted. And where he is now is in Tony's villa. Knowing that he shouldn't be in any danger, Fury didn't continue to pretend, and just opened his eyes. After adapting to the strong light from the desk lamp in front of him, Fury saw an old and a young Stark and his son sitting side by side in front of him, holding cheeseburgers in his right hand and happy fat house water in his left hand, watching him while eating. "Can you take this light off first? I feel like you are interrogating the prisoner." Fury made a request speechlessly. He is the head of the agent, how are you doing? But before Tony could speak, Mark spoke first. He doesn't take Nick Fury's set. Now it is a great opportunity to tease Fury. If he announces his identity as the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Mark will not have the opportunity to do so. "Ha, a bold madman, we captured the private house and dared to make unreasonable demands like this. I think you must be a habitual offender, but in the hands of this young master, no matter how courage you are, you have to be obedient. Be soft, Great White, change the mode of interrogation, and let this fanatic recognize his mistake." Received, Master. The interrogation mode is turned on, the target is locked, and I regret that the program has started. Da Bai, who was already ready to wait for Mark's order, appeared directly beside Fury, and before he had any chance to speak, it was a feast of the King of Thunder. In order to save Tony yesterday, Da Bai destroyed his PVA fiber skin. Mark simply replaced him with a more durable graphene composite skin, and added the Thunder King based on its conductive ability. No, it should be regretted. The program is used to save the lost lambs who are forced to commit crimes. In fact, it was just Mark who wanted to play with Nick Fury's evil taste. He saw Fury, who was tightly tied to a chair by a stretchable belt, just vomited, "Ma." After regretting the procedure, he jerked with excitement. Seeing Fury twitching frantically on the chair, and the uncontrollable smile on Mark's face on the side, Tony suddenly chilled in his back and shivered. "All right, Mark, although he doesn't look like a good person, but he can break into our house quietly, he is definitely not an ordinary person. Let's listen to what he says first. What does it mean to not look like a good person?" Nick Fury just wanted to yell at Mom to mess with Fak. But after thinking about his current situation, and seeing Da Bai who is still standing next to him, Fury still honestly stated his identity. "My name is Nick Fury, I am the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. This time I came here to meet you. Talk about Avengers." Avengers. Tony did not doubt the identity of the other party's S.H.I.E.L.D., but was very confused about the Avengers in the other party's mouth. On the side, Mark could not hide the excitement in his eyes, because just now Nick Fury said that he was talking to you, instead of talking to Tony alone. This shows that his ability is valued by Fury and he wants to let him. He also joined the Avengers. You know, joining the Avengers means not only responsibility and danger, but also opportunities and challenges. Alien civilization, infinite gems, and all the mysteries and unknowns in the Marvel Universe can be contacted and explored through the identity of the Avengers. For Mark, who is hungry for knowledge, this is a happy thing. It is a pity that Tony uses his guardian status to refuse to allow Mark to participate in this conversation on the grounds that Mark is underage. The conversation between Tony and Nick didn't last long, and it was not suitable for them to discuss too deeply when they met for the first time. 20 minutes later, when the two of them came out of the study, Fury came to Mark very enthusiastically, put on a kind gesture as much as possible, and said, "Mr. Mark Stark, I sincerely invite you. I hope you can enter S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Weapon Development Bureau and become our special consultant. I am very interested in the equipment you just used on me and the inflatable robot that can discharge electricity." Mark is also a little strange. How could the dignified director of S.H.I.E.L.D. suddenly be so polite to him, because it turned out that he was interested in the props and R&D ability he developed. But Mark doesn't do this kind of loss-making business. It is impossible to work part-time. It is impossible to work part-time in this life. There are so many talents in his company, and his speech is good. I really like it there. Mr. Secretary, if you are interested in the various props I developed, you can consider signing a procurement contract with my company's Mark Scientific Research Center. I can exclusively supply you S.H.I.E.L.D. special departments, but hiring child labor is illegal. Well, when I go back, I will confess the matter to Agent Phil Coulson, and he will communicate the relevant details with you. Tony, take the time to consider what I said to you. I take the liberty to come and disturb you today. Gone. Watching Nick Fury leave the villa, Mark came to Tony and asked curiously, "What did you talk about?" "Then you don't ask, it's nothing to do with the kids." Tony pushed away Mark, who came to gossip with a look of disgust. "Cut, don't tell me, but the child is very vengeful. This time S.H.I.E.L.D. gave me the order I have given to Hanmer Industries. After all, someone from Stark Industries looks down on me as a kid. Smelly boy, dare you. Los Angeles, Hollywood, China Theater. Today, a grand press conference will be held here. The first cross-age product released by the Mark Research Center and Stark Industry will unveil its veil here. In fact, the magical reporters already know what this product is about to be released. After all, Tony has already shown it to everyone at his return press conference before. Although the main product of this conference has lost its sense of mystery, it still has gained widespread public attention. Because it has something to do with the current Iron Man Tony Stark, which is doomed to lack traffic and attention. At the same time, the people are also very concerned about what kind of character Tony, the talented fool and future heir of the Stark family, is, and whether he has inherited the super high IQ of his father and grandpa. The answer to this question will not only affect Mark's personal reputation, but also affect the assessment of the future value of Stark Industry by Wall Street financial tycoons. At the moment, the melon eaters who watched this press conference with a gossip heart do not know that Mark will drop a blockbuster on them. At 7:30 p.m. New York time, the first product launch conference of the Mark Research Center officially began. Tony and Pepper were wearing high-level customized formal wear, sitting in the auditorium, watching Mark's upcoming performance. Without the host's rendering of the atmosphere, nor the performance of the guests singing and dancing, Mark just wore a casual suit, appeared from the side of the stage, and stood under the spotlight. Gentlemen and ladies who are watching our product launch on the scene, on the internet and in front of the TV, good evening everyone. Today is the first time I have spoken on stage in front of so many people. He has a clever speaking skill, so let's go straight to the topic now and get straight to the point. When Mark finished saying this, the lighting engineer on the scene instantly turned off the light source of the audience, and then shot two chasing beams. One beam was shining on Mark's body, and the other beam was shining on a red suitcase. Everyone, the product I want to show you today is in the red box of this suitcase file size. Mark's words attracted everyone's attention to the red suitcase on the stage. Before this, I think some of you have already seen its true colors and even experienced the convenient services it brings. But today, I will introduce my invention to you in detail. Demonstrate its power. Dabai, it's your turn to debut. Quote, ding. After receiving the order from Mark, the ring light strip in the middle of the suitcase lit up, and the lid on the suitcase opened automatically, hissing after a short inflating sound. An image was stupid, white and chubby. The soft inflatable robot just appeared in front of everyone. Hello, I am your personal health assistant Dabai, can I help you? Before this conference, Mark temporarily closed the functions of Dabai's other modules, and only retained the original medical chip module. At this moment, when all the female audiences who were paying attention to this product launch saw the appearance of Dabai's image, he was instantly captured by his cute and soft image. So cute, chubby, I really want to hug it. This is the common aspiration of countless female audiences at the moment. For the majority of male audiences, Dabai's appearance alone cannot conquer them. Next, Mark needs to appear on the stage and introduce them to Dabai's powerful function as a personal health assistant. I have already seen the image of Dabai. When I designed it, I took into account that the image needs to be approachable and soothing, so I adopted an inflatable design for easy storage and a round and lovely shape. However, for any product that is equally successful, a good-looking appearance is definitely not enough. Next, I will introduce and demonstrate the powerful ability that Dabai has as a personal health assistant in detail. Dabai's body is implanted with the most advanced medical chip, and more than 10,000 medical measures are preset inside, which can solve most of the diseases that may be encountered in daily life. A holographic scanner is added to its eye position, which can scan the human body harmlessly and accurately diagnose all diseases currently found in human medicine. At the same time, Dabai's diagnosis and treatment plan also includes mental illness diagnosis and treatment procedures. For mental illness patients who cannot tell their inner secrets to real doctors, Dabai will be a more suitable listener. With it, you can do and have a partner who can escort your physical and mental health anytime, anywhere. It can eliminate the disease when it just starts to appear, greatly reducing the possibility of developing a serious disease. Quote. By the time Mark's speech progressed here, the eyes of the audience, whether male or female, both present and absent, had already lit up. Especially for those capital predators and elites, for those who have solved their basic needs of food, clothing, housing and transportation, what else is more attractive than a healthy body and a longer lifespan? Everyone must have seen it in life or in the news. Some people usually seem to be very energetic and healthy, but after a hospital check, they found out that they did not know when they were terminally ill. For many diseases, the human body does not feel any changes before it develops to a real terminal illness, and when we experience this discomfort, in most cases it is too late. However, going to the hospital for a full physical examination every year is not only time-consuming and laborious, but also very expensive, but all these troubles can be thrown behind you after you have a big white. Any little hidden danger on your body will not escape. It has a golden eye. Quote. Mr. Mark, is the ability of this inflatable robot really as powerful as you said? Can you show us its function on the spot? This is a reporter on the scene who questioned Mark, who was talking on the stage, but for Mark, this is not a problem. The live demonstration was originally in his plan. Now that someone has thrown it out for him. The introduction, then he also took advantage of the situation. No problem, Mr. Reporter. Now, please watch a video explaining the diagnosis and treatment of Dubai. We ask the staff to take advantage of this time to invite several volunteers who want to experience Dubai ability to wait on the side of the stage. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.